The Alpha Who Touched Me Last. A Werewolf Shifter Romance Audiobook. Written by Rain Hart. Chapter 1. The Blood That Should Not Bloom. The moon hung in the sky like a watchful eye, too full, too still, its light so sharp it carved the trees into blades of silver. Lyrene Morin hated full moons. They whispered to something inside her. But tonight, the moon didn't whisper. It screamed. She knelt among the moss-thick roots at the edge of the Bloodsong path, her hands trembling as she clipped the last of the glow leaf. The leaves pulsed faintly with pale bioluminescence, harmless things that children used for fever tea and old widows soaked into salves. Her basket was nearly full. She had only needed one more to meet her quota. One more, and she could vanish before the first horn blew for the village's move-fast prayers. She didn't want to be seen. Not tonight. Not when her blood was humming. A sharp twist in her belly made her pause. Her fingers froze midair. Another spasm surged up her spine like a frozen dagger dragged against her bones. She gasped, the sound shallow, muffled, instinctively swallowed before it could escape into the open dark. Something inside her was shifting. No, not again. Her knees hit the forest floor. The glow leaves scattered. She clutched her stomach, breath ragged, sweat breaking cold along her back. Her skin itched, then burned, then flared with a pain so bright it turned her vision white. She couldn't scream. She couldn't let them hear. She bit down, hard, on her own wrist, muffling the sound that clawed up her throat. A thin rivulet of blood welled against her lips. Her teeth had pierced flesh. The pain only worsened. Her fingers curled, cracking audibly. Bones groaned beneath her skin, rearranging themselves. Her nails blackened and elongated. A pressure built behind her ears, like something pushing from within. She reached up with bloodied fingers and fur. Not human. Her hands were not her hands anymore. And her eyes, she couldn't see their reflection, but she felt them glowing, hot and unnatural. Red. Burning. She curled into herself, heaving, body writhing in the dirt. The scent of her own blood was iron and fire and ash. Her heartbeat pounded like war drums behind her ribs. She couldn't stop it. She could only endure. A snapping twig jolted her. She froze. Footsteps. Voices. Henley, the sheep tracks end here. I told you I heard something. Wait, what is that? Torchlight broke through the underbrush. A dozen villagers spilled into the clearing, boots thudding, hands grasping rope, spears, and iron lanterns. Their shadows swarmed like ghosts. And at their head, Henley. Blood of the gods, he breathed, stumbling back as his eyes locked on her crouched, malformed form. It's her. It's the red-eyed witch. No, she rasped, but it came out wrong, Farrell cracked. He pointed. I told you. She's changing. Like her mother. The curse lives. Someone screamed. A child began crying. Lyrene stumbled backward, vision swimming, the glow leaf basket crushed beneath her. She tried to run, but her legs buckled. She collapsed. The world tilted. A net struck her from the side, tangling her arms. Rough rope cut into her mutated skin. She thrashed, but too weak. Blood pooled beneath her face. Bring her back, Henley growled. The ambassador will want to see this for himself. Darkness pulled her under. She woke in stone. Cold seeped into her bones. She lay on a slab at the center of the village's old sacrifice ring, hemmed in by jagged stones and ruined chains hammered into the ground. She was still bleeding. The burn in her bones had quieted, but her limbs ached with a foreign weight. Her nails had shortened again. Her ears, back to human. But something had changed. She could feel it coiled beneath her skin like a second heart. A soft voice cut through the murmurs beyond the stone circle. Oh, child. Look what they've done to you. Lyrene turned her head. Iron stood beyond the barrier of runes, shawl drawn high, curls pinned neatly. She looked every inch the sorrowful, loving guardian. Her pale blue eyes were wet. She carried a wooden cup, steam curling from it like breath. Mother, Lyarine croaked, the word bitter on her tongue. Don't call me that, Iron said, soft as ever. You know your place in this village is complicated. She stepped closer, careful not to cross the boundary. They want to give you to the ink-marked emissaries. Tomorrow. But I begged them to wait. To let you rest. You're feverish. You need something warm. She held up the cup. I made your favorite. Blackberry clove. Lyarine didn't reach for it. But her throat was raw. Her body trembled. And something in the drink, something sweet, herbal, old, tugged at her senses. Iron sighed. Don't be stubborn. You'll need your strength. She placed the cup at the stone's edge. Drink it, she whispered. It'll calm the blood. Lyarine stared at her. And for the first time, she didn't see pity in those blue eyes. She saw precision. A chill ran down her spine. But she was so tired. So cold. She crawled forward and sipped. The taste was bitter beneath the sweetness. A strange metallic afterbite. Her stomach turned. A voice, distant, broken, murmured in the back of her skull. Don't drink that. Her mother's voice. Lyarine jerked back, too late. The cup dropped, spilling across the stone. Her pulse stuttered. She clutched her abdomen as the burning returned, this time not from her own cursed blood, but from something inserted into it. Her scream tore through the night. Villagers gathered. Watching. They always watched. Iron stood above her, backlit by moonlight, her expression unreadable. This is for your own good, she said gently. And Lyarine's body began to tear itself apart from the inside. When she woke again, it was not in stone. Not in the ring. Not anywhere she recognized. She lay in snow. Alone. Her breath came in white clouds. Her limbs were bloodied, bruised, torn. Her throat raw. Her fingers cracked, broken. Her heart a dying drumbeat. And standing above her, shadow etched in moonlight, was a man she had never seen. He did not move. But her blood burned in his presence. Her skin ached to be closer. His eyes were not human. They were blue. So blue they burned through her pain. Chapter 2. The wolf she was never meant to be. The first thing she felt was cold. The kind of cold that gnawed through flesh and threaded into bone, steady as a blade. Then pain. Not the dull ache of bruises. No, this was deeper, stitched into muscle, into marrow. Her ribs shuddered with every breath, and her skin throbbed like something inside her wanted out. Lyarine opened her eyes. Above her, clouds tore apart to reveal the full moon, still heavy with judgment. Snow fell in silent flakes, but around her the forest had gone unnaturally still. The trees leaned close like silent witnesses, their black boughs framing the silver sky. She tried to move. A jolt of fire lanced up her spine. Her body wasn't hers. Her legs twitched with the wrong reflex. Her fingers curled into claws, actual claws, thick at the tips, blackened, splitting from her skin like bone forced out of velvet. Her back arched and pain exploded along her lower spine. She reached behind herself with trembling hands and felt it. The nub of a tail. No. No, no, no. Her breath came shallow. She pressed her bleeding hand to the snow, dragging herself upright with a hoarse sob. Another voice cut through the silence. Don't move. The command hit like a blade. A shadow loomed over her. A man. Broad-shouldered. Cloaked in furs dark as the pines, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. His hand held a silver blade angled downward. Its point glinted an inch from her throat. She froze. He knelt slowly, gaze hard as ice. Her heart stuttered. He had the eyes of an alpha. Cold, commanding, unnervingly calm. But something about him crackled under the surface, like heat beneath a frozen lake. I said, don't move. She stared at him, panting. Her lips were blue. Blood crusted her chest, her arms, her throat. Her tunic, what remained of it, was in tatters. Her knees, bare, scraped red against the ice-crusted snow. The cold was nothing. The shame was everything. Please, she whispered, her voice cracking. He didn't flinch. Her fingers tightened around the snow beside her. She remembered the last face she saw, iron and the cup and the warmth that had tasted of rot. And then, nothing but pain. And now this stranger. This hunter. He wasn't here to help her. She wasn't stupid. She recognized the set of his jaw, the clean grip on the hilt, the steadiness of his breath. He was here to kill her. Are you one of them? Her voice was raw. A clearer silence. She twisted violently and the pain tore a scream from her lungs. The movement broke whatever control she had left. Her fingers snapped into claws. Her neck spasmed. And something beneath her skin pulsed, an ancient rhythm, bone deep and furious. No, she hissed, reaching for her chest, digging nails into her own flesh. Blood sprayed across the snow. Don't let it finish, don't. He lunged, grabbing her wrists. She fought like a creature drowning, thrashing, sobbing. Let me break it. If I tear it open, it can't complete. You'll kill yourself, he growled. Good, she spat. His grip tightened. Something between them flared, a spark invisible, but unmistakable. He recoiled as if struck, his body tensing, breath shuddering. His blade clattered to the snow. He stared at her, eyes wide. What are you? He breathed. She was crying now, soundless tears streaking down blood-stained cheeks. I don't know, she whispered. But I wasn't supposed to survive. A pulse of heat rolled off her skin. Her blood glowed faintly along the cuts she'd made. Not natural. Not human. The air thickened. He staggered backward, pressing a fist to his temple. The glow touched him, too, traveled from her blood to his skin like invisible cords of tension. His body trembled. A low, involuntary snarl escaped his throat. No, he hissed. You're not. You can't be. His breath was ragged now. His hands trembled. The scent of her blood, sharp and rich, wrapped around him like a noose. She watched it happen. Watched this stranger, this killer, crack. You need to leave, he said suddenly, backing away from her like she'd burned him. He turned, fists clenched, cursing under his breath. Now, before I do something we both regret. She couldn't move. Her body was failing. Her skin felt like wax pulled too thin. Her spine twitched, and another bone cracked under the weight of transformation. She collapsed face first into the snow. When she woke again, she was warm. She didn't know how long it had been, only that her back was pressed to fur-lined stone, and there was fire nearby. Her body hurt, every inch of it, but she was clothed again in rough spun wool. A blanket had been draped over her. Footsteps approached. The man, the alpha, stepped into view, rubbing his jaw like he'd been pacing for hours. His expression was thundercloud dark. I should have left you, he said. She didn't answer. You're not just some cursed girl. You're carrying something. She pulled the blanket tighter. He stared at her. You're bleeding wrong. She flinched. What? Your blood, it called to me. Pulled. Like a reversed imprint. But I never marked you. I've never met you. She shook her head, dazed. I don't understand. Neither do I. He moved closer. She stiffened. He noticed. Relax. If I meant to hurt you, you'd be dead already. She looked away. I know what you think I am, he said. You're an alpha. He didn't deny it. I was, he muttered. Not anymore. Silence. You don't even know what you are, do you? He asked finally. She clenched her jaw. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I, he said quietly. Another pause. Then, what's your name? She didn't answer. Suit yourself. He stood to leave. Lyarine, she said quietly. Morin. He paused. His breath hitched. Just slightly. Fenhalder, he said. Serether. They said nothing for a while. Then, from somewhere deep in the wild, a hum. Subtle. Resonant. Wrong. Serether went still. He lifted his head and sniffed the air. Lyarine sat upright. What is it? His eyes darkened. Metal. Burnt bone. Blood. She shivered. What does that mean? His hand found his blade. Mirrorbone hounds, he said. Lyrine's breath hitched. And they've found you. Chapter 3. The first mark should have killed me. Snow broke beneath their steps in uneven pulses, the sound muffled by the wind, but still too loud in Lyrine's ears. Her feet slipped more than they stepped, dragged forward by the tight grip of Surether's hand wrapped around her wrist. The trees thinned. The darkness thickened. She barely registered the ache in her lungs anymore. Everything inside her was too hot. Too loud. Her blood was screaming. I can't, she rasped, stumbling to her knees. He didn't stop. Get up. I can't. Her voice cracked. Her arms trembled. The old tunic clung to her skin, soaked in sweat and blood, and every breath made the burn in her throat worse. I feel like something's inside me trying to claw its way out. It is. He crouched beside her, teeth clenched. And if you don't keep moving, it'll do more than try. His eyes cut through her like frost. But beneath the fury, there was strain. He was breathing hard too. Not from exertion. From proximity. She had seen it, the way his gaze kept flicking to her exposed shoulder, where the skin glowed faintly with red spirals, her body branding itself from the inside out. A sick part of her knew what it meant. Another part wanted not to. The sound came again. Far off. Distant. A low, grinding howl, not animal, not human, metal and bone colliding mid-throat. Her mouth went dry. What was that? Mirrorbone hounds, he said flatly. Sentinels. They've caught your scent. She swayed. They're coming for me. They're coming for your blood, he said, already hauling her up again. Not for who you are, what you are. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, he muttered. But it might keep you running. Her legs barely functioned, but she moved. She let him guide her around the ridge bend and through a gap in the rocks, toward a dim glowing grove below. She knew the name of this place, whispered in children's rhymes and forest lore warnings. Moose Shiver Glade. No one came here. No one survived here. But there was water. Cold enough to shock the soul. Pure enough to dull pain. Surether half carried her down the slope, until the snow turned to stone and the light turned blue, glowing faintly from the mist pooled at the glade's heart. And then the world broke. A flash behind them. A vibration, not a sound, like a metal chime struck beneath the ribs. Surether dropped her to the moss just as something tore through the air, a claw, segmented and made of bone and steel, crashing into the stone where they'd stood seconds before. She screamed. The mirrorbone hound landed in front of them. It moved on too many limbs. Its ribs gleamed like polished ivory. Its eyes glowed with contract runes. Its mouth opened, and she saw no throat, only a vortex of blades. She couldn't move. Surether stepped between them, silver knife in hand. The hound lunged. He met it mid-leap, slashing at its jaw. Sparks flew. Blood spattered her face. The hound snarled and twisted, latching onto his arm with its claws, but he yanked free and drove the blade into its chest. It shrieked. And still, it struck. One claw sliced toward her. Her arms flew up. Too slow. The edge of the blade skimmed her collarbone. She felt it instantly. The pain wasn't sharp, it was precise. It struck her blood, not her flesh. Her back arched as if strings pulled her upright. Her chest glowed red, then white, then black. The wound bloomed, not outward, but inward, like something beneath her skin unfurled. She heard her own heart beat like thunder. Then she screamed. She couldn't stop screaming. Surether turned just in time to see it, her body lit with convulsing light, her neck glowing with spiraling sigils, her spine lifting from the moss like it was being pulled from within. No, he breathed. He dropped the hound. It collapsed twitching. He ran to her. Don't move. Gods, don't move. Her hands clawed at her throat, trying to rip something off. But there was nothing to tear, only heat, only pressure, only pulse. Her eyes rolled back. Surether grabbed her. Held her still. Breathe. She couldn't. The markings on her skin began to open, split, tiny fissures at first, then wide cracks of red light. The center of her throat glowed bright enough to blind. Her veins screamed. He cursed. Then he did the only thing he could think of. He pressed his mouth to her throat. It wasn't a kiss. It was a claim. A broken, partial imprint. Unfinished. Unaccepted. Wild. A false mark. His teeth grazed the skin. His lips sealed over the bleeding rune. His breath burned against hers. The glow halted. She gasped. And her back fell limp into the moss. The air trembled. Then all was quiet. For a moment. Then came the heat. Not from outside, from inside her. From where his lips had touched her throat. Her body didn't calm, it changed. Every nerve flared to life, not with pain, but with sensation. Heightened. Magnified. She shivered. He was still holding her, his mouth still near her throat, his hands on her bare shoulders. She realized something. She was naked. Not from seduction, but from transformation. The shift had burned away her clothes. Her eyes widened. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't look at me." He didn't move. "I didn't ask for this," she said, voice shaking. "I didn't want to, this body, it's not even mine anymore." His hands released her slowly. She felt the weight of his gaze. "You think I want this," he said, his voice dark rough. She didn't answer. "I've fought every part of my life not to fall into another imprint." He looked away. "But the moment I smelled your blood, I knew. You weren't meant to be mine. But you are." A bitter laugh left her lips. "I'm disgusting," she said. He looked back at her then. And he said nothing. Just stared. Then quietly, almost like a confession. "This imprint, it was supposed to belong to my sister." She froze. He stood. "This shouldn't be happening." She didn't reply. He turned away. "I'll find something to cover you," he said. "Stay down. Don't draw the hounds." As he moved toward the water, she heard it again. The low hum. The warning. He stopped mid-step. His head tilted. And then he cursed. "Mirrorbone hounds," he whispered. "Another pack." She sat up, clutching the blanket to her chest. "How many?" "Too many," he said, voice cold. He glanced over his shoulder at her. And his eyes were no longer calm. They were wild. And afraid. Chapter 4. Her curse howls louder than mine. They didn't speak as they reached the ruins. Surether moved ahead in silence, his gait sure-footed on the moss-slick stones, while Lyrene staggered behind, the threadbare blanket wrapped around her offering little more than dignity. The snow had stopped. The air hung heavy and damp as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. The broken shape of the old temple reared out of the earth like a beast that had died half-standing. Stone arches jutted from the moss like rib bones. A ring of pillars stood crooked, worn by time and moonlight, their surfaces etched with runes half devoured by ivy. Surether stopped beneath the central arch, his breath visible in the cold air. "This place is old," he said, glancing back. "Older than either of us. Don't touch anything." Lyrene didn't respond. Her lips were pale. She looked more ghost than girl, barefoot, bloodied, and still marked with spirals of faint red light that shimmered beneath her skin like burning roots. She moved past him, slow, stumbling. Her body was returning to itself. Her spine no longer felt like it would snap apart. But her skin, it hurt. Not with heat, but with something more violent, splitting, like something trying to bloom from beneath. Her veins had turned a deeper shade of red, forming intricate patterns that danced up her arms and across her chest. Bluff flowers, she thought distantly. A curse in full bloom. She reached the far wall of the temple and leaned against it, closing her eyes. Her breath hitched. Her heartbeat still hadn't slowed. She could feel him behind her, standing too still, too quiet. Watching. Her voice came out raw. "You should have let them take me." "No. I'm not your responsibility," she whispered. "No. You saw what I am." "I saw enough." She turned then, fists clenched. Her body trembled, not from fear, but from the unbearable pressure building in her skull. The curse was moving, rewriting her from the inside out. "You felt it," she said. "Didn't you?" His jaw tightened. "I felt it." "Then you know it's only going to get worse." He didn't answer. Lyrene took a breath that turned into a choke. Her vision blurred. "I don't want to become what they made me. I don't want to carry this." She stumbled forward, falling to her knees before the runic ring. The carvings beneath her hands felt like fire. "I'd rather die as myself." He stepped forward. "Don't." She didn't listen. She pressed her hand into the runes. The stone beneath her flared red. The past roared. The temple filled with sound, not sound but memory. Screams. A woman's voice. Choking. A body writhing on the altar, bound in silver wire. The smell of blood. Of burning hair. Of bones snapping out of place. And above it all, a mirror. Shattered. Her mother's eyes reflected in all its shards, wide with fear. Then the voice. "Don't watch, Lyrene. Close your eyes." She couldn't. She screamed. Her body jerked as the memory passed through her like lightning. Her back arched. Her skin split at the seams of the spirals. Blood bloomed in soft rivulets. She scratched at her chest with clawed fingers, trying to tear the curse out. And then he was there. Sarethar tackled her back against the ground, pinning her wrists with one hand and grabbing her face with the other. "Stop," he snarled. She fought him, bit him, cried, "Let me go. You'll kill yourself." "Good." He slammed her wrists above her head and shifted all his weight over her. She hissed in pain, back bowing off the stone. "I said stop." His voice was low, guttural, full of rage he wasn't using. She thrashed beneath him, wild. "You don't get to die like this," he growled. "Why? Why do you care?" He didn't answer. Instead, he released her wrist and bit her palm. Hard. The pain was white. She gasped. Her body jerked as if shocked. Her blood accepted it. The curse stuttered. Sarethar sat back, her blood on his lips. Lyrene blinked. Her head cleared. "You," she whispered. "You took it." He didn't look at her. "I shared it." "Why?" His voice dropped to something dark. "Because if you burn, I burn with you." She curled inward, arms wrapped around herself. Her palm throbbed, but the howling in her bones had dulled. The hallucinations faded. The temple was just stone again. Broken, quiet. He stood and moved away. "I should have left you in that snow." She didn't speak. He paced near the arch, breathing heavily, rubbing the bite mark on his hand. She sat up slowly, eyes dull. "You said it was meant for your sister. That mark." He didn't respond. "So now it's mine?" No, he glanced over his shoulder, something sharp in his eyes. "It's not anyone's. It was never meant to be used." "Then why?" "Because your curse howls louder than mine," he muttered. She stared at him. Outside the temple, snow began to fall again. Miles away, in the high chambers of the mirror tower, a pool of silver light flickered. Ralathwin stood before it, her face impassive. The surface of the mirror pulsed once. Then again. Then steadily, like a heartbeat. A voice behind her murmured, "What is it?" She didn't turn. "A contract resonance," she said. Her gloved fingers stroked the edge of the silver basin. Someone marked her. Another beat passed. Then a second tremor rippled the pool. "And someone answered," Ralathwin said slowly. The attendant shifted. "The Alpha." "Not just Alpha." Her voice was cold. "One of ours." Or at least he was. She turned away, robes rustling like dead leaves. "Send the order. The test subject is no longer viable for destruction." "Then what?" "Bring them both back," she said. And smiled. Chapter 5, Bound in Blood We Never Chose. The fog along Dustmore Crossing never lifted. It clung to the ground like old breath, coating every stone and dead branch in its slow, suffocating crawl. The sun had never touched this place, not truly. Not since the wars that left it broken, its bridges turned to bone, its rivers to mud, its air to ash. Even the birds refused to sing here. Lyrene could barely see a few feet ahead as they walked. Her feet sank into the wet silt with every step. Her body still ached from the temple. Her left hand was bound, her right trembling. "Keep your head down," Sarethar murmured beside her, voice low and unreadable. "They're watching already." "I can't see anything," she hissed. "They can." She turned toward him, eyes narrowed. "Do you even know what we're walking into?" "Dustmoor leads to the Vale of Mirrorbone. We're not far from the Origin Tower." He didn't look at her. "We need what's buried here if we're going to find a way to unbind that thing inside you." Lyrene's throat tightened. That thing. She wasn't sure what was worse, being cursed or hearing it called that. The fog thinned near the ruins of the old bone bridge. White arcs of calcified ribs spanned the chasm like the spine of something ancient, half sunken in the mire. The path narrowed. The air grew colder. They didn't make it halfway before the first clang rang out. Armor. Heavy. Clean. Deliberate. Lyrene turned and saw them, Mirror Knights. For on foot, 2 mounted. Polished breastplates like river glass, helmets reflecting the sky. No faces. Just glinting masks and unreadable posture. Their swords were sheathed, but the threat was louder than steel. "Don't speak," Sarethar said. "Don't move." He stepped in front of her and raised his hand, palm out. "She's with me," he said, voice pitched into the tone of military protocol. "Prisoner. Marked. Under assignment from Tier 5. The knights said nothing. Sarethar turned to her, expression hardening into something cold and merciless. "Kneel." She flinched. "What?" His eyes didn't waver. "If they think you're a half-marked stray, they'll cut your throat before I can draw breath. Kneel." Her stomach twisted. "You can't mean." He stepped closer, low voice lethal. "I said kneel." And then, quieter, under his breath, almost a whisper. "Please." She stared at him, then dropped. The impact jarred her knees against the whetstone. Mud stained the edges of the blanket she'd tied around her hips. Her hands shook as they pressed into the muck. She was burning. But it wasn't the curse, it was shame. Sarethar turned back to the soldiers. "She was wild when I found her. Took a partial imprint in a rogue collapse zone. Nearly tore apart 2 squads." He yanked a chain from his belt. It wasn't iron. It was old silver, stained and etched with runes. He fastened it around her neck. Her breath hitched as the metal kissed her skin. Sarethar's voice turned cruel. "She needs training. I'll take her to the origin point for correction." A mounted knight tilted its head, as if assessing. "She smells tainted," it said. Sarethar didn't flinch. "That's why she's bound." "She doesn't look bound." He gave the chain a hard pull. Lyrene gasped. "She is now." The knight dismounted, stepping closer. She couldn't see their eyes beneath the glass mask, but she felt them, burning across her skin. "This one's feral," the knight murmured. "You sure she hasn't turned?" "I keep her on the edge," Sarethar said. "If she slips, I slit her throat." The knight leaned closer. "Prove it." A beat of silence. Then, "Make her howl." Lyrene's stomach dropped. "No," she whispered. Sarethar didn't move. The knight tilted its head. "Didn't you say she responds to dominance?" Another knight chuckled. "Mark-born mongrels always do." Sarethar reached down, grabbed her chin, and forced her head up. "Do it," he said coldly. "Make the sound." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please," she mouthed. His grip tightened. "Do it, Lyrene." And then, softly, cruelly, "Make it convincing." Her heart shattered. She opened her mouth. What came out wasn't a howl. Not at first. It was a gasp, a sob, a broken breath. Then, deep from her chest, something old stirred. The blood. The curse. It twisted with the shame, the fury, the humiliation, and turned to sound. She howled. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't strong. It was pain. But the earth answered. A tremor rolled across the ground. The silver chain snapped. Her back arched as light burst from her chest, the curse igniting in full bloom. Her eyes glowed red. Runes burned along her skin. The knights staggered. The nearest one stepped back. "What is she?" And then Lyrene moved. Not human. Not wolf. Something in between. She sprang, teeth bared. But not at them, at Sarethar. He didn't defend. She slammed into him, snarling, knocking him backward. Her nails scored his jaw. Her breath burned. He stared up at her, bleeding. "You did it," he said. "You made them believe." She froze. The knights raised their weapons. Before they could strike, the ground cracked open. A scream, deeper than bone, shook the valley. And the knights ran. The blood flowers on her skin began to fade. Lyrene collapsed. Sarethar caught her. The silence that followed was deafening. She lay against him, limp, eyes glazed. "I hate you," she whispered. "I know." Her fingers curled weakly into his coat. "But I'm afraid of you leaving more." He didn't answer. Just wrapped the chain around his own wrist. And carried her into the fog. Chapter 6: The Girl They Called a Vessel. The wind at Thormere bit deeper than any blade. It howled low through the husks of trees, clawed over the stones of the ruined tower, and curled like a curse through the broken bones of what had once been a sacred place. The path that led to the border of the Mirror Tower's dominion was lined with thorns thick as fingers, petrified and sharp enough to slice leather. Sarethar pushed through them without flinching. Lyrene could barely walk. Her legs trembled beneath her. Her fingers were blue. She didn't speak, didn't cry. Her breath came in soft, short gasps, each one shallower than the last. Her skin, once flushed with the curse's heat, had turned the color of old snow. He knelt and scooped her into his arms, one arm beneath her knees, the other behind her back. Her head lolled against his shoulder. "You'll be warm soon," he muttered, but she didn't stir. His heart hammered. He'd seen death before, too many times. He'd inflicted it. But this was different. This girl, this cursed bloodflower wrapped in ruin, wasn't supposed to break this easily. Yet here she was. Freezing. Fading. And there was no fire in Thormere. Only thorns and salt wind. He carried her beneath the hollowed arch of the temple's ruin, settling her against a stone wall that barely shielded from the cold. Her body curled in on itself, small, shaking. He stripped off his coat and laid it over her. Still she shook. "Damn it," he muttered. The wind pressed in harder. Her eyes fluttered. Her lips parted. "Mother," she whispered. His breath caught. Not because of the word. Because of what followed. A voice, too clear, too sharp, answered through her. "You were never my daughter." He turned, every hair on his body rising. It didn't come from Lyrene's mouth. It came from the air. From her blood. The wind shifted. And a woman's voice whispered directly into his mind. She was shaped, not born. Hollowed, not chosen. "You're looking at my vessel, not your mate." Sarethar stood. "What are you?" he snarled. The voice laughed. "She's mine. She's always been mine. You're just holding the cup." Lyrene whimpered. He dropped to her side again. Her skin was like ice. Her breathing ragged. He didn't think. He acted. He pulled the glove from his right hand and pressed 2 fingers to the side of her throat. Her skin twitched beneath his touch. "Forgive me," he whispered. Then he traced the first line. It wasn't a full imprint. It couldn't be. That would bind them for life, and he wouldn't do that, not without consent. But a false brand, etched just deeply enough to root in blood, could override a cursed system and collapse. Temporarily. Pain shot through her body like a wave. She arched backward, teeth bared in a soundless cry. He finished the mark with his own blood. The moment it closed, her body convulsed and her eyes snapped open. She screamed. His own body buckled under the feedback. The mark rebounded through him, seeking balance. His spine locked. His lungs seized. He dropped beside her. Breathing shallow. Vision blurring. She trembled beside him, red light flickering beneath her skin. "Make it stop," she begged. "I did," he choked. "I stopped it. You marked me." He closed his eyes. "Only to save you." She tried to sit up, but the pain made her collapse against him. Her head dropped to his shoulder. Her breathing slowed. "I felt it," she whispered. "When you bled into it." "I had to anchor you," he said. "It hurt." "I know." Her fingers curled in his shirt. But it was real. His breath caught. Then everything shifted. The world tilted sideways. The snow vanished. So did the ruin. They were standing in a dream. A clearing. Soft moss underfoot. Moonlight slanting through pine trees. He looked down. She was no longer human. She was wolf. Small. Silver-pelted. Eyes wide and wild. She crouched at his feet, ribs heaving, paws bloodied. She didn't speak, but the feeling, the feeling, radiated from her in waves. Fear. Shame. Need. Saruther knelt. She flinched. "Easy," he whispered. Her head dropped, resting against his leg. Her breath hitched. He hesitated, then ran his hand down her spine. She shuddered. And shifted. Not into the woman she was, but into something half-formed, curled in on itself. Pale skin and red marks and two bright eyes. She clutched at his thigh, gasping. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I didn't ask to be made a container." "I know." Her voice cracked. "Then why do I feel full of things that aren't mine?" His hand touched her face. "Because I've felt it too," he thought. But he didn't say it. Instead, he leaned close. "You're not a vessel," he murmured. "You're the flame. They just built you a cage." She closed her eyes. The dream cracked. They woke together, tangled in each other on the ruined floor. The wind outside had stilled. The thorns no longer rustled. But Lyarine sat up slowly, her palm pressed to her throat. "The mark," she said. "It's fading," he replied. "Why?" He didn't answer. Because he knew it would hold. Longer than it should. Because it had already sunk deeper than either of them realized. And far above, within the mirrors of the tower, Lady Ovlin stood before a pool of bloodlight and smiled. "Begin preparations," she said. "My vessel breathes. The blood has turned. The howl begins." Chapter 7. One Bite from Ruin. The wind on the ridge of the split heart howled like it remembered death. It shrieked between the stone teeth of the cliffs, tearing at cloak and skin alike, biting with a cold too sharp to be natural. The sky was the color of bruised bone, and snow fell like ash. Lyarine stood at the edge of it all, her feet on the weathered stones of a broken ritual platform, her breath trailing in short, fogged bursts. Behind her, the air shimmered faintly, the last remnants of an old ward that hadn't held in years. Something else had begun to take hold. The marks on her body were changing. It started as a shimmer along her spine, a ghosting of silver lines under her skin. Now, as she turned her head, Saruther could see them crawling over her collarbone, down her ribs, weaving toward her hips, sigils, formed of bone memory and old alpha blood. Not hers. And not his. He hated it. "They're binding you," he said, low. "And not just with the curse." She didn't answer. Her fingers were curled at her sides, her knuckles white. Every breath looked like it hurt. "Lyarine." Still nothing. He stepped closer. "You can't let them mark you through your bloodline. You have to resist it." She laughed, short and sharp. "I've been resisting it since I bled under the moon, Saruther. It doesn't care." He didn't like the look in her eyes. That sharp, cracked shimmer, like something inside her was fraying apart. A ripple in the air stopped his next breath. The world changed. 3 figures stepped from the fog. Their robes were mirror-slick, their eyes covered in silver mesh. The air around them smelled of salt and ash. Mirror Tower emissaries. Collectors. Sent to reclaim vessels deemed unstable. One of them raised a hand. "Return to us," she said. Her voice wasn't her own. It echoed strangely, Ovlin's cadence, channeled through a borrowed throat. "You were never meant to go this far." Sarethar moved in front of Lyrene. You'll have to kill me first. The emissary didn't blink. That can be arranged. Sarethar didn't wait. He struck. The first died before it could scream, silver throat torn open by his blade. The second fell to a broken neck twist. The third tried to flee, but Lyrene was already there. She moved like wind and poison, striking low. Her claws weren't her own. The scream she let out when she ripped the spine from the emissary's back didn't sound human. When it ended, blood steamed on the stones. Lyrene dropped to her knees, panting. Sarethar stood over her. You're changing faster, he said. She nodded. I feel it in my teeth. His jaw tightened. She looked up at him, and he saw it, the silver sheen beneath her skin, crawling like roots. Her back arched slightly. Her throat moved. And then she said it. Do it. His breath caught. What? You know what I mean. Her voice was hoarse. Raw. Bite me. Silence. Break the chain. Claim the print. I can't fight them anymore, but you can burn them out. He stepped back. No. She flinched. Why? His voice was iron. Because you deserve to choose. Not be owned. Tears burned in her eyes. They're already owning me, she whispered. Every second I breathe with these marks, I become less myself. I won't force a bond that can't be undone. You think I care about undoing it? I do. She stood. Her knees shook. I'm losing time. Thoughts. I can't sleep without hearing her voice. I see things that aren't real. My skin burns where the marks spread. He didn't speak. She stepped closer. Do you know what it feels like? She asked. To know you're not even cursed because you matter, but because you fit? Because your body's just good enough to carry someone else's magic. He looked away. She reached for him, her fingers trembling. I'm not asking to be yours. I'm asking to not be hers. He swallowed. His hands curled into fists. She stepped closer still. Her breath brushed his neck. If you don't, she whispered, I'll let the next alpha I see tear into me. I'll kneel, bare my throat, and beg. Sarethar snapped. He grabbed her wrists, shoved her against the ritual stone. She gasped, not in fear, but from the impact. His face was inches from hers. His breath burned. His jaw was clenched hard enough to crack. Don't you dare, he growled. Her voice trembled. Then do it. I want to. His eyes were wild. I want to bite you so hard the gods feel it. I want to rip every trace of them from your blood and replace it with me. Then why? Because you don't want me, he hissed. You want escape. She didn't deny it. He stepped back. Slow. Controlled. Every muscle screaming. You'll hate me for it, he said. If I do it like this, you'll never look at me without remembering the desperation. Her voice broke. I'd rather hate you than lose myself. The wind howled through the ridge. They stood in silence, the space between them electric, heavy with every word unsaid. Finally, he turned away. If I ever mark you, he said, it will be when you're no longer afraid of what it means. Lyrene fell to her knees. Her breath came in broken sobs. She didn't stop him from leaving. Not this time. Chapter 8. The Thorn-Touched Dream. The Virlin Verge was no place to sleep. Ragged stone ribs jutted from the mountainside like the remains of a beast that had tried to crawl out of the world and failed. The wind tore through the cracks, carrying dust, bone, and whispers. No trees grew here. Nothing green survived. Just rocks split wide by frost and time, sharp as guilt. Sarethar found a hollow beneath a slab of crumbling granite, just large enough to shelter from the night. He didn't speak as he dragged Lyrene inside, his jaw locked, shoulders stiff. She said nothing either. The silence between them had teeth now. She curled against the stone, knees to her chest, arms around her legs. Her skin still glowed faintly where the silver had bloomed. He sat across from her, sword resting beside his thigh, back to the cold wall. Neither of them slept, but eventually the body betrays the mind. She closed her eyes. The dream came in fragments. At first, it was warmth. Her body lay against his, skin to skin, bone to breath. The moon hung low over them, bright and swollen, bathing them in silver. She knew she was dreaming, knew it as clearly as she knew his scent, the heat of his pulse beneath her cheek. He was on his knees. She was above him. Her body had changed, furred, lean, fanged. She crouched over him, panting, eyes red with need. His throat was bare, exposed. And she wanted it. Not to hurt. To claim. She leaned forward, lips brushing his neck. He didn't move. She hesitated. Her claws dug into his shoulders, trembling. "I shouldn't," she whispered, her voice not human. "You want to," he said. She closed her eyes. "I'm not yours." He tilted his head, exposing more of his throat. "I allow it." The words hit her harder than teeth ever could. Her mouth opened. She bit. Not gently. Not with reverence. She sank her teeth into him. Blood. Warm. Alive. His breath caught. A sound escaped him, not pain, not protest. Something between a gasp and a groan. Her body arched. Her breath came fast. The mark beneath his skin began to glow. Then, everything shattered. She woke screaming. She scrambled back so fast she hit the wall behind her. Her hands shook. Her breath came in violent gulps. And then she saw him. Sarethar. His shirt was torn at the shoulder. Blood ran down his collarbone. Her fingers, her nails, were soaked in red. Her mouth tasted of iron. "No," she gasped. "No, no, no, no." She looked at her hands. At his skin. At his eyes. He didn't flinch. He didn't reach for her. He only said, voice low and hollow, "This is what's inside you. What your bones remember. It's not your fault." She covered her mouth. Her body folded inward. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He didn't answer. She dropped to her knees. "Please, please end it. I can't control it. I don't want to." He stood. She crawled after him. "Kill me." He didn't look at her. "Please." Her hands shook as she grabbed the edge of his coat. "I don't want to wake up tasting you." He shoved her back. She hit the stone hard. She didn't move. He turned to leave. And then he paused. The moonlight, reflected in a shard of old crystal embedded in the stone, cast a mirror light between them. He looked down and saw her shadow. It wasn't human. It was a wolf. Curled. Crying. His breath hitched. Just once. Then he turned away again. Behind the verge, in a tower rimmed in glass, Ralathwin stood before a wall of still water. "A scrying pool." "She's ready," she said. "Marked?" asked the apprentice beside her. "Worse," Ralathwin said softly. "She wants to be." The reflection in the mirror trembled. "Prepare the rites." Chapter 9. The Scar That Calls the Alpha. The wind at gallows of the lost carried voices. It slithered between the broken scaffolds where old executions had once taken place, across splintered beams and rusted chains that still swung when no hand touched them. The cliffs dropped away into white, endless void, the snow-laced abyss below swallowing sound and light. No one came here without leaving something behind. Lyarine stumbled through the half-frozen mud, every breath clawing at her ribs. Sarethar was just behind her, his steps heavy, purposeful. His shoulder still bled through the torn fabric, the imprint she'd left in her sleep refusing to fade completely. He didn't speak, but his gaze stayed fixed on her, as if waiting for the next crack in her to widen. She was full of cracks now. Her skin burned. She didn't know when the pain had started, only that it hadn't stopped since the last dream. Since she'd tasted him. "I need," she gasped, reaching for a rotting beam to steady herself. "I can't breathe." "You're burning," Sarethar said. "No," she rasped. "I'm breaking." And then she heard it, footsteps. From the fog behind them. More than one. The mirror tower had sent new emissaries. Glass-clad. Rune-blooded. Hunters. "They're here," Sarethar said. Lyarine turned to run, but the pain struck again, like chains yanking her inward. Her knees buckled. She collapsed beside the stone base of what had once been a gallows, now collapsed into ruin. Her hand landed on something cold. A shard. Smooth. Curved. She turned it over. A piece of bone mirror. It still hummed with power, her mother's mark, faint but etched into its surface like a wound that never healed. The moment her blood touched it, the air changed. Her back arched violently. Her body convulsed. Then came the sound, crack. Bone. Her own. Her shoulder twisted with a sickening lurch. Her fingers curled into claws. She screamed. Blood burned beneath her skin, and the silver patterns reappeared, not as sigils now, but as roots, crawling like vines up her arms, across her spine, down her thighs. Her breath stuttered. Not again, she sobbed. The pain seized her throat. She dug her nails into her chest. She couldn't stop it. Sarethar was beside her in seconds. Don't touch the mirror, he snarled, grabbing the shard from her hand and tossing it into the ravine. It's drawing the old blood. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Her eyes had turned red, wide and wild. Her skin steamed with fever. Her mouth opened, and the sound she made wasn't human. It was a cry pulled from some ancient place, feral and panicked. She tried to stand. Her legs gave out. The edge of the cliff met her back. She would have fallen, should have fallen, if he hadn't caught her. Sarethar's arms wrapped around her mid-collapse, dragging her backward just before the ledge crumbled. The two of them dropped into the snow together, breath tangled. She writhed against him, body shuddering, skin hot to the touch. Too much, she choked. I can't, I'll lose. You're not going to lose anything, he growled, forcing her still. You're going to stay here. With me. But it hurts. I know. Her eyes found his unfocused. Desperate. Then stop it, she begged. I can't. You can. No. Her hands fisted in his coat, dragging him closer. Their foreheads touched. Her lips trembled. I can't hold it back. Yes, you can. She shook her head violently. Then tell me what to do, he demanded. Bite me. His breath caught. Lyarine. I need it. I need something to anchor me, to break it, to stop it before I'm... She choked. Please. Just mark me. His jaw clenched. She leaned closer, lips brushing his ear. If you won't, she whispered, I'll find someone else. I'll find any alpha with teeth sharp enough. I'll give him my throat, I'll beg. Stop. You won't. So I will. I said stop. He crushed her against him with a snarl. Her body froze. His hand found her nape, fingers threading through sweat-slick hair. His mouth pressed to her shoulder, not her throat, not the traditional place, but the curve of her back, just beneath the bone. No full bond, he growled. No claim. Just this. He bit. Hard. She screamed. Pain bloomed, pure, holy pain, and something inside her shattered. The roots stopped crawling. The fever broke. But not without cost. The imprint recoiled, violently. The mirror's blood backlash struck him. Sarethar's body convulsed. He dropped her, falling back into the snow. His spine arched. Blood streamed from his nose, his ears. Sarethar. He didn't answer. She crawled to him, hands shaking. He was still breathing, but barely. Her bite mark still bled on his back, slow and deep. And her own skin was clean. The silver had gone. She stared at her hands. At him. And began to cry. Not softly. Not with dignity. She sobbed like a child, like something feral and guilt-ridden. He had done what she begged. And paid the price she should have. Chapter 10. Mirror Bloodbinding. Ashfin Hollow did not feel like a forest. It felt like a wound. The trees there didn't reach for the sky. They folded inward like broken limbs. Their bark flaked in bone-white strips, and their leaves, what few remained, hissed in windless air. Fog clung low, not rolling but watching. Even the birds refused to sing. Lyarine crouched beside the shallow shelter of a fallen trunk, where Suruther lay, still unconscious. He hadn't moved in hours. Not since the bite. Not since he took her curse into himself and collapsed like the world had cut its strings. His skin was pale, his lips cracked, and the imprint she'd begged him to make was now a raw, half-healed mark over his ribs. The place where her blood met his. The place she had made him hurt. She watched him breathe. Shallow, but steady. Her hands shook as she dipped a rag into the pot of water she'd heated with what little spark root she had. The warmth bled steam into the bitter air, curling like whispers. And that's when she heard it. Her mother's voice. He will rot from the inside, just like you. Lyarine froze. You think love will preserve you? Love is the softest path toward ruin. She turned sharply. No one. Just trees. Fog. Rotting branches. And the slow rise and fall of Suruther's chest. But the voice, had been real. It lived in the bones of the hollow. She wrung out the cloth and leaned closer. Her fingers hovered over his chest. Sweat clung to him, mingled with dried blood and ash. His heartbeat was faint beneath the skin, like it was afraid of itself. I'm sorry, she whispered, pressing the cloth gently to his collarbone. He didn't stir. She cleaned him slowly, careful not to disturb the scar she'd put there. The flesh was bruised beneath it. Silver-threaded veins curled outward like vines, spidering toward his shoulder. She moved lower, down his ribs, down to the curve of his stomach, where the pulse beat stronger. Her hand shook. She dropped the cloth. She didn't know what possessed her next, only that her mouth moved before her thoughts did. And she leaned down, pressed her lips to the place she had bitten. Not a kiss. Not a prayer. A confirmation. A claim. His body twitched. She pulled back. The silver veins under his skin lit faintly, pulse light, beating in time with her own. Then the world fell away. Everything went mirror. She didn't feel her body collapse. Didn't feel the ground beneath her or the weight of fog. Only glass. Pressure. Pull. And when her eyes opened again, she wasn't in the forest. She was in a hall of stone. Judgment Hall. Blood-drenched tapestries lined the walls. Broken columns ringed the room like the fingers of an old god's hand. At the far end sat a throne carved of wolf bone, draped in veils. And in it, her. Lady Ovlin. Alive in reflection. Her dark hair was coiled in elaborate spirals, her silver eyes rimmed in kohl, her lips the color of bruised fruit. She wore a robe made of black feathers and mirror shards, and her hands were bare. Pale. Elegant. Lyarine tried to move. Couldn't. Ovlin stood, descending the throne steps with the unhurried ease of someone who had already decided the outcome. I remember when your mother begged, she said softly. She said you wouldn't survive the ceremony. Said you were too soft. She smiled. But your softness was your strength, wasn't it? That's why you make such a perfect vessel. Lyarine's voice cracked. I'm not yours. Ovlin tilted her head. You've always been mine. You were shaped by my will. Your womb was primed with my blood. Your soul was designed to contain. She reached forward, tipped Lyarine's chin up. You're not wolf. Not woman. Not even cursed. You're empty. And I fill you. Lyarine wrenched back, falling to her knees. I'm not a vessel. You are, Ovlin said, voice like silk wrapped around a knife. And now, you're cracked. She turned. Behind her, the throne shimmered. And on it, Suruther. Bound in silver thorns, his imprint bleeding. Ovlin smiled wider. He will rot, just like you. Because he took what wasn't his. Stop. You fed him your need. Your hunger. And he devoured it like every alpha devours. They always bite. That's what they're made for. Lyarine screamed. The mirror shattered. She woke choking. Suruther's hand was on her arm. He was awake. His brow furrowed, sweat on his skin. What happened? He asked, voice rough. She pulled back. Her fingers went to her lips. There was still the taste of blood. I saw her, she whispered. His eyes darkened. Your mother. No. She looked up, trembling. Ovlin. Chapter 11. The Hollow Wolf Hunts. The withered spires rose like fingers from a corpse. Twisted towers of stone and bone, wrapped in the bleached tendrils of long-dead ivy, clawed their way out of the red earth, reaching for a sky that hadn't known sunlight in a decade. The wind here did not howl, it moaned, deep and low, like a beast too tired to scream. Sarethar didn't stop moving. He led Lyarine through the shifting dust, his breathing shallow, the weight of pain from the imprint burn still blooming beneath his ribs. His arm was wrapped tight to his chest where the curse's backlash had split the tissue beneath his skin, but he didn't let it show. Not yet. Not when she was still shaking from the vision. Faster, he said, voice rough. Lyarine stumbled behind him. Her legs were soaked up to the knees from the marsh and the hollow. Her skin was flushed again, fevered, either from the curse or the echo of Ovlin's voice still whispering in her skull. I saw her again, she panted. She was inside the mirror. She said I was shaped for this. You weren't shaped, he growled. You were chosen. And choice means you can refuse. But what if I can't? Then I'll refuse for you. She stopped, gasping. He turned, ready to yell. But that's when they heard it. The howl. It didn't echo. It consumed. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, low and wet, as if scraped from the ribs of the world. It wasn't rage. It was longing. And it was coming for them. Sarethar swore. Lyarine looked around wildly. What is that? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because the wind shifted. And Verek stepped out from the shadows between the towers. He moved like something half-remembered by nature, not a beast, not a man, but a silhouette of both. Pale hair hung tangled across his shoulders, and his body bore too many scars to be natural. His skin shimmered faintly, like mirror shards had been pressed beneath it. But his eyes, empty, and smiling. Alpha, Verek whispered, head tilting. I feel you breathing in my marrow. Sarethar pushed Lyarine behind him. Keep running. Don't stop. But, go. She obeyed. He turned to face the hollow wolf. Verek's expression softened as he watched her flee. I missed her. Her heat. Her fractures. Her scent. You're not touching her, Sarethar said. Already have, Verek murmured. Through the tether. Through the bone she left behind. He lunged. Sarethar blocked, steel ringing against claw. The impact sent pain lancing up his already wounded arm. His shoulder buckled, but he didn't fall. Not yet. They clashed again. Verek struck low, not for the throat, but the heart. The spot where the mirror blood curled under Sarethar's skin. The imprint. It glowed. Verek's fingers dug in. And something tore. Sarethar screamed. The world spun. He collapsed against the stone, gasping. His right arm hung useless at his side, not broken, but hollowed. The imprint had been pulled through it like a thread yanked from a wound. His soul felt absent. Not bleeding, missing. Verek knelt beside him. You feel it now, he whispered. The emptiness? She left that in me. And you took it from her. Blood dripped from his claws. But you're not worthy of the mark. You fight it. She aches for it. Lyarine screamed. She had returned. Get away from him. Verek turned. His smile twisted. He rose slowly. She chooses the cage. Not the key. Lyarine hurled a rock, not at Verek, but at the arch behind him. It collapsed. Dust roared through the tower's ribs. By the time it cleared, Verek was gone. Silence fell. Sarethar lay on his side, breathing hard, sweat soaking his shirt. Lyarine crawled to him. He tried to push her away. Don't. But she was already there. Already cradling his broken arm. Already tearing the cloth back. Already crying. I told you not to stay, he rasped. I never listen. The bone was cracked, not visibly, but under the skin. The mirror blood had recoiled and shattered something inside him. She lowered her mouth to the wound. He froze. Lyarine. Let me, she whispered. And she did. Not with hunger. Not with lust. With reverence. She let her tongue trace the broken ridge, slow and soft, her tears falling onto his skin. Her lips brushed the bruise where the imprint had been, and he hissed, not in pain, but in something darker. Something he didn't have the strength to name. She didn't stop. "Why would you take it?" she asked. His voice cracked. "Because you didn't deserve to break again." She pressed her forehead to his chest. He closed his eyes. And somewhere, in the distance, the hollow wolf howled again. Not in rage. In sorrow. Chapter 12. She Who Carries the King's Sin. The sun-fallen sanctuary stood like a wound scabbed over by time. Stone columns split by sunfire, glyphs blackened by blood rituals long forgotten. Vines curled through cracks in the altar walls, but nothing bloomed. This was no place of worship anymore. It was a tomb, quiet, waiting, listening. Lyarine stepped carefully into the dust-thick dark, her pulse hammering in her throat. Her fingers brushed the old altar rail. Even now, it thrummed faintly with mirrored energy. Her mother had been here. Once. Maybe many times. The contract bone records, the last chance of unbinding the mirror curse, were supposed to be sealed in this place. Suruther followed close behind, his steps quiet but never gentle. Since the wound Varek left him, he moved like a man forcing his body to obey out of spite. His arm was wrapped tightly, shoulders stiff, but he didn't let it slow him. He hadn't said much since the fight. She hadn't asked him to. Silence lived between them now, not because of anger, but because too many words might break the fragile thing forming between their grief. The sanctuary's heart chamber opened like a mouth, its once gold mosaic shattered into ink-black fragments. The altar was there, cracked through the center, with a mirror shard embedded at its crown. She stepped toward it. A voice echoed above. "You walk well for a dead girl." Lyarine froze. Suruther spun, blade already in hand, though his grip shook. Mistress Ralathwin stepped from the shadows above the chamber's edge. She wore her ceremonial robes, black, with mirrored embroidery that caught even the dead light and flared with spectral color. Her pale hair hung loose, and her hands were bare. She did not climb down. She descended. Her feet didn't touch the stairs. The mirrored glyphs lifted her like a queen of rot. Lyarine stepped forward, rage already coiling in her stomach. "This was my mother's sanctuary. You defile it." Ralathwin smiled thinly. She was never its keeper, only its tenant. Her blood bought her entry. Yours will break the lock. Suruther moved in front of Lyarine, jaw clenched. "Try it and die." Ralathwin's gaze shifted to him, and for a moment, her smile widened, amusement flickering in her eyes. "Still guarding her? Even now? Even when you haven't asked what she is?" "I don't care." "You should." She raised her hand. The mirror in the altar flared, and the room dissolved into light. A vision. A memory. Not Lyarine's. Not Suruther's. But the sanctuary's. The chamber shimmered, tapestries restored, gold light washing the pillars. At the center of the vision, a man, crowned not with iron, but with bone. Dark-haired. Regal. Young. And beside him, a woman with wild black curls and mirror silver eyes. The king. And the witch. They stood close. Too close. Hands joined. A shard of bone, white, rune-etched, between them. Contract bound. Then, a child. Cradled in arms. Wrapped in silver. The vision ended. Ralathwin spoke. "She's not your little witch born. Not just some cursed girl." Her eyes locked on Lyarine, cold. "She is the sin of a dying kingdom. A royal imprint, carved in secrecy. A binding meant to merge two bloodlines." She descended the last stair slow. "She is the reason the king fell. The reason the contract shattered. Because she was made to inherit everything." Suruther's voice was low, lethal. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ralathwin laughed softly. "Your instincts know. That's why you felt it when she bled. That's why your imprint answers hers." She's not just cursed alpha. She's built to bind. She is the mirror bone heir. Lyarine took a step back. Her legs nearly gave out. Her voice came out quiet. Raw. You're saying I'm royal? No, Ralathwin's smile vanished. I'm saying you're the reason royalty burned. You are not a legacy. You are the error. Sarethar surged forward, blade raised. Ralathwin flicked her wrist. The mirror behind her pulsed, and a wall of force sent him crashing into the stone. He groaned, dazed. Enough playing, Ralathwin said, turning to Lyarine. It's time. Bind her. Or kill her. There's no room left for choice. Lyarine looked at her hands. The blood beneath her skin shimmered. Not red. Not silver. Something between. She laughed. Not from joy. From exhaustion. I was never meant to live, she whispered. No, Ralathwin agreed. You were meant to contain. Lyarine looked toward Sarethar. He was rising barely. His eyes locked on hers. He saw her despair. He saw the weight. And he snarled. You're wrong, he said through his teeth. She was made to break you. Ralathwin blinked. And Lyarine moved. The mirror behind them shattered. Not from magic. From her scream. It wasn't human. And it wasn't wolf. It was something new. Something born of kings and witches and broken contracts. And it howled with rage. Chapter 13. The vessel's obedience must be earned. The mirror-spire's sanctum breathed like something alive. Its walls were etched in silver and shadow, pulsing with a low rhythm not unlike a heartbeat. The air smelled of lavender and iron. Candlelight flickered over stone basins and mirrored columns, making the chamber feel endless, as if it existed between time and reflection. Lyarine stood barefoot on the black marble floor, her toes damp with cold water. They had dressed her in the ceremonial white. It wasn't a dress so much as a statement, thin, sleeveless, nearly translucent. It clung to her like mist and revealed far more than it concealed. Her collarbones were exposed, the faint red markings of her curse visible beneath the damp fabric. Across her shoulders, they had painted pale ink lines, pre-imprint guides, designed to channel the sigils of obedience. Like she was a vessel being prepared for pouring. Her hands trembled. She didn't speak. She couldn't. The song had taken her voice. Not just her words, but the muscle, the breath, the instinct of sound. The high-pitched chant, woven in mirrored tongue, had wrapped itself around her like a fog. It dulled her edges, made her limbs feel light. Her body wasn't numb, only disconnected, like a puppet waiting for someone else's string. She had no taste, no heat, no pain. That frightened her more than the rest. The priestesses moved in silence. 3 of them, robed in gray. Faces painted with mirror slivers, their lips stitched with ink. Their hands were soft but practiced. One lifted her chin, another turned her arms palm up. The third traced a heated rod across her throat. It didn't burn. Not yet. Lady Ovelyn watched from the upper tier. She didn't speak either, not aloud. But her presence throbbed. Like gravity. Like fate. The ritual pool at the center of the sanctum filled with luminous water, silver, clear, and cold as moonlight. Runes glowed at its edges. Lyarine was guided, gently, firmly, into its center. She didn't resist. She couldn't. Her legs folded beneath her. She sat waist-deep in the pool, white fabric floating around her like wilted petals. Above her, the song grew louder. Not music. Not spell. Command. Something entered her veins. She couldn't name it. It didn't have a shape. But it whispered. Not in words, but in removals. The slow erasure of instinct. The pressure that smoothed edges. That silenced hunger. That erased the urge to flee. She blinked slowly. Her name? She couldn't recall it. Her reason for sitting here? She wasn't sure. She existed. That was all. A beautiful empty shell. Ready. The priestesses descended the stairs with fresh ink. Their brushes gleamed with silver root oil, and as they dipped them against her skin, she didn't move. One painted a spiral over her chest. Another traced a loop over her thigh. The last dipped her finger in blood and marked Lyrine's lips with a single line. She was almost perfect. Almost ready. But then, the blood on her lip tasted real. Not the metallic hum of ritual fluid. Not illusion. Real. And in that flicker, taste returned. With it, heat. A memory. Not hers. His. Sarethar's breath. The way his fingers had clenched when he'd carried her from the snow. The burn of his mark. The pain he'd taken into his bones just to keep hers whole. Her fingers twitched. A crack. A ripple in the water. No one noticed at first. The priestess lifted the final inkstone. The chant built toward crescendo. Lady Ovelyn tilted her head. Then Lyrine moved. She bit down on her wrist. Hard. Skin split. The taste of her own blood, vivid, hot, full of truth, exploded on her tongue. The ink reacted violently. The sigils on her skin writhed. Then broke. A scream tore from one of the priestesses, not Lyrine, and was cut off by the force of the backlash. Blood hit the water like dye. The ritual shattered. Light cracked. The pool overflowed. Lyrine rose to her knees, hair dripping, blood running down her arm. The ink peeled from her skin like ash. Lynn did not shout. Did not flinch. She only stepped forward, gaze locked on the girl trembling in the desecrated pool. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. Well, she said softly. You inherited at least one useful trait. She turned her back. Clean her up. We'll try again. Chapter 14. He was never meant to kneel. Ashvenhold had once stood proud at the edge of the known world, its battlements iron-toothed, its towers crowned in smoke. The fortress had guarded the blood-bound routes that once pulsed with alpha command and ancestral fire. Now it was bones and dust. Stone shattered by time. Doors long collapsed inward like broken ribs. Snow drifted through cracks in the vaulted ceiling, catching on the jagged iron remains of an oath-forged banner. Sarethar moved through the ruins like a ghost, every step heavier than the last. He shouldn't have felt it. But he did. Somewhere far below, beneath stone and snow and command sigils worn thin by decay, her pain pulsed through him. Not metaphor. Not memory. Real. Lyrine's pain. It slithered down the half-mark on his arm, awakened by something distant and ritualistic. Not dream echo. Not curse echo. Mirror blood tether. They were using it against her. He clutched his forearm, stumbling to a halt. The mark twisted. His breath caught. Then the air thickened. He turned too late. Verek stepped out from behind a crumbled wall, pale hair slicked with frost, mirror light gleaming beneath his skin. But this time, there was no violence in him. Only intent. Alpha, Verek whispered. You shouldn't be here. Sarethar snarled. Then kill me or move. I've done enough of both. Sarethar raised his blade. Verek didn't flinch. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to offer. What the hell could you offer me? Verek smiled, teeth gleaming. Understanding. He raised a hand. And the world changed. Sarethar dropped to his knees. He didn't fall. He folded, as if the gravity beneath him had reversed. A scream tore from his throat, not his own. Lyrine's. His vision blurred. Not with pain, but with memory. Her memory. He was in the mirror spire again, bound in the ceremonial white, a brush dragged across his lips. Ink traced the hollow of his throat. His knees pressed into cold stone. Women's hands touched him like he wasn't real. He tried to speak. Nothing. He tried to move. Nothing. Her shame curled around his lungs. The helplessness. The numbness. The sheer, awful obedience forced into her bones. He saw the ink creep across her thighs. He heard the song designed to erase her. He felt the cold water lap at her ribs. And then, he tasted her blood. The moment she bit herself. The moment she broke the spell. He was ripped from it. But not whole. Surethur collapsed sideways into the ash. He vomited. Then he screamed. Not from the pain. From the injustice of it. From knowing she'd borne it alone. Verek knelt beside him. "This is what they did to her," he said, gentle, almost kind. "And you let her go there alone." "I tried," Surethur rasped. "Too late." Verek held up a mirror shard, silver streaked with black veins. "She's bound to it now. And so are you." Surethur didn't look up. "I won't let them keep her." "Then mark her properly." "I can't." "Because you're afraid of what you'll become?" "No," Surethur growled. "Because I'm afraid of what I'll take from her." Verek tilted his head. "So give something back." Surethur froze. His arm twitched where the half-mark writhed. He reached for his dagger. Verek blinked. "What are you doing?" Surethur brought the blade to the base of his neck and drove it down his spine. The pain was exquisite. Blood gushed. Bones split. The mark flared and then burned. With his free hand, he reached inside the wound, pulled forth a sliver of something darker than blood. The royal core. The thing passed down through his father's line, meant to command armies, to bond legacies, to build empires. He should have never used it. But he pressed it into the wound and began to carve. Not a full mark. Not a chain. A single, deliberate glyph. Her name. Lyarine. Bound in blood. To him, the magic caught like wildfire. It didn't burn. It transformed. His body twisted. His bones realigned. But his wolf screamed. And then vanished. Gone. Forever. When it ended, Surethur collapsed forward onto all fours, sweat pouring from his skin, blood soaking the ash below him. He had lost the part of himself that shifted, but gained something else. The mark glowed across his back. Not a curse. Not a brand. A promise. Verek stood watching, silent. "She'll feel it," he said. "She'll know you gave it up." Surethur didn't rise. Didn't speak. He simply knelt. In the ruins of a forgotten fortress. For the girl whose pain he'd finally made his own. Chapter 15. The obedient wolf learns to bite. The air in the inner vault did not move. It was heavy with centuries of breath held too long. The stone walls curved inward like a throat, slick with a sheen that wasn't moisture, just old blood absorbed so many times it had bled through the rock. There were no torches, only the reflection light from 1,000 embedded mirror shards, their surfaces uneven, warped. They didn't reflect the world as it was. They reflected you as they wanted you to see yourself. Lyarine sat on the cold floor, arms folded around her knees. She hadn't spoken in hours. She hadn't cried. The soft white of the ritual garment still clung to her body, damp with dried salt and ink that hadn't been washed off completely from the failed binding. Her lips were cracked. Her body still ached from the ritual pool's violation. But none of it hurt as much as the silence. Until it didn't stay silent. A whisper drifted through the mirrors. Not sound, exactly. Memory. "Let me die, please. Let me die before they take her." Her mother's voice. Lyarine's stomach twisted. Her nails curled into her arms. A light flickered in one of the mirror shards across from her. It didn't show the room. It showed her. Wolf-shaped. Spine twisted, ribs exposed like blades, fangs bared. A low snarl rumbling from her throat as her reflection turned its head. Looked directly at her. Another whisper. "Bite. Serve. Obey. That's what you were made for." She flinched. The door behind her opened. Footsteps, light and slow. Mistress Ralathwin. She moved with the fluid grace of someone who had never once been interrupted. Her mirrored robes didn't rustle, they hummed, like old spells sleeping in silk. Her hands were bare and her eyes, when they settled on Lyarine, were sharp and amused. "This room has teeth," she said gently. "But none of them ever learned how to close." Lyarine didn't move. Ralathwin walked along the wall, brushing her fingers over the bite marks etched into the stone. Some were small, some deep. All left by others, vessels who had come before. Failed. Broken. You're quieter than I expected, Ralathwin said. Still no reply. You should scream, Lyarine. It's what the others did. Especially when they saw themselves. Lyarine's jaw locked. Ralathwin moved closer. You don't need to be ashamed of what you are. Wolves obey stronger wolves. That's all this is. The ritual doesn't break you. It reveals you. She crouched, level with her. You were made to bend. Made to bleed beautifully. You know this. A flicker. Another mirror sparked. In it, Lyarine again, but this time kneeling. Neck exposed. Lips parted. Waiting. No voice came. Only the heat behind her eyes. Ralathwin leaned in. Do you know the wolf's first virtue? She whispered. Obedience. Before loyalty. Before love. Before hate. Lyarine's hands twitched. Ralathwin tilted her head. You've been resisting for so long, haven't you? But that's not strength, Lyarine. That's fear. You're not afraid to become something else. You're afraid to admit you already are. The mirror behind them shimmered. Lady Ovelyn appeared within it, her face calm, distant, amused. Let her listen, she said. Let her remember the shape we gave her. Ralathwin stood. On your knees. Lyarine didn't move. I said, kneel. She stayed frozen. Ralathwin's tone remained soft. Good girl. You're almost there. She walked behind Lyarine. Pressed a hand to her shoulder. The other slid across her throat. You don't have to fight anymore. The whisper in the mirror rose again. Bite. Serve. Obey. And something broke. Lyarine didn't scream. She didn't beg. She moved. Faster than the priestess expected. Her hand shot up, grabbed Ralathwin's wrist, twisted. Ralathwin gasped, not in fear, but delight. Oh, she breathed. Is this the bite? Lyarine turned her head and sank her teeth into the flesh just beneath Ralathwin's collarbone. She bit until she tasted blood. Until the mirror wall screamed. A pulse of pain ricocheted through the room. The reflection shattered. Not physically. Not completely. But it cracked. The spell link between Lyarine and the tower jolted. The curse reacted. Too violently. Blood poured from Lyarine's nose. Her spine locked. Her body collapsed back against the floor. But she didn't regret it. Not even as darkness swallowed her. Ralathwin staggered back, hand over her neck, blood staining her pristine robes. She didn't scream. She laughed. She bit, she said softly. She finally bit. Ovelyn's face in the mirror did not change. She still has a tongue, then, the woman said coolly. Good. She leaned forward in the glass, like someone observing her reflection through a thin pane of ice. Let's see what else she's willing to give up. Chapter 16. Bite me or leave me broken. The tunnel breathed like a dying lung. Deep beneath the mirror spire, stone twisted in unnatural curves, carved by rites older than any remembered map. It wasn't a passage built for escape, it was a wound. A sacrificial vein, pulsing with the memory of every offering that had ever tried to crawl its way out. Sarethar ran through it like a man with nothing left to lose. Blood still slicked the edge of his blade. The last mirror knight hadn't even had time to scream. His boots left red streaks behind him, and every step sent a dull throb through his ruined shoulder. But none of it mattered. Because she was ahead. He could feel her. The mark he'd carved with his own blood pulsed faintly in his chest now, not with magic, but with warning. With pain. She was close. Too close to the edge. He turned the final corner. And saw her. Lyarine lay slumped against the wall of the escape tunnel, crumpled like a doll left behind in a storm. The ceremonial white was gone, replaced with ritual bandage wraps soaked through with blood and ink. Her body bore the remnants of mirror sigils, some still glowing, others burned into her skin like fractured glass. Her eyes were half-lidded, breath shallow. Her lips moved, barely. He dropped to his knees. Lyarine. She blinked. Her mouth twitched. Did you come to finish me? He exhaled shakily. No. Her fingers twitched against the stone. Should have let me break. He reached for her. She flinched, not in fear, but reflex, like something inside her still expected more rituals, more touch that wasn't hers to choose. But he didn't press. He set the blade aside. His voice was low. Raw. I came to take you out of this place. You can't, she murmured. Not without taking all of me. Her head lolled toward him, and he saw it now, how deeply the mirror blood had spread. It pulsed beneath her skin like vines of silver rot. Her pulse fluttered against her throat. She was burning up from the inside. He reached to cradle her face. She whispered, almost asleep, "It hurts less when I'm not awake." Don't say that. I'm tired of being everyone's shape. He swallowed hard. Then she looked at him. Clear. Sharp. Awake. Bite me. He froze. Her breath hitched. I'm not asking for a bond, she rasped. Not a promise. Just bite me. Anchor me. Please. You don't understand what you're asking. I do. Her voice cracked. I'm dying. I can feel myself unraveling. If you don't ground me now, there won't be anything left to save. I can't just mark you to keep you breathing. Then let me die. He flinched. Her head leaned against his chest. Her fingers clutched the front of his coat with trembling insistence. You don't have to love me, she whispered. You don't have to want me. But gods, Serether, I don't want to wake up again and find I've turned into her. Into what they built me to be. His breath trembled. I want to be yours, she choked. Even if it's just for this. Even if you hate yourself for it later. Just make it mine. She bared her throat. Her pulse was so faint. He leaned forward. His lips brushed the hollow just beneath her ear. She stilled. He inhaled her, sweat, blood, ink, and the ruin of too many rituals. Then his mouth opened. His teeth grazed her skin. And stopped. His arms wrapped around her instead. He pulled her close, cradled her against his chest like she was already gone. I'm not here to take from you, he said softly, voice breaking. I'm not here to use you, or mark you just to make the pain stop. Then why? I'm here because I want you to live. Her hands fisted into his shirt. She sobbed once. Then that's worse, she whispered. He looked down, heart aching. Why? Because that means you care enough not to do it, and I still need it. He kissed her temple, slow and shaking, and held her there as the sigils burned brighter beneath her skin, as her breath faltered, and as her heart, still unmarked, beat once more beneath the weight of every choice neither of them was ready to make. Chapter 17. The Curse Learns Her Name. The wind screamed across the Sunshatter steppes. Once a place of coronation and covenant, the plateau now lay fractured beneath an open sky, shattered by war and the weight of silence. The broken stairs, chipped and scorched, led up to a stone dais veined with dried blood and old gold. The air smelled of lightning and ash. Lyrene stood barefoot at the edge. No, not Lyrene. Not anymore. Her lungs ached. Her muscles trembled. But the pain had dulled into something new, something reverent, like standing at the edge of a name long forgotten and nearly found. Serether stood behind her, close but not touching. This time he did not lead. He watched. Let her walk alone. Let her choose. She stepped onto the dais. Her heel met the center stone. And the world opened. A pulse erupted from the platform, deep, red and resonant. Not sound. Not magic. Blood. The veins in the stone responded, lighting up in silver spirals that shot outward like cracks in ice. Her breath caught as heat flared beneath her skin, not the burn of curse, but the sharp, sacred heat of recognition. From within. From below. And then, her blood rose. Literally. It floated from her fingertips in glistening drops that hovered in the air like stars. Serether watched, silent. The blood formed symbols, one after another, in ancient script he hadn't seen since the fall of the last royal circle. But she understood it. She felt it. Not learned. Born. Her voice broke, low and hoarse. Lisservel. The sigils blazed. Her spine arched. Venhalder. The symbol solidified in the air, carved in light now, etched into wind and space. She collapsed to her knees as the last letter of her true name glowed. Sarethar took a step forward, then stopped. Because the wind wasn't only hers anymore. It was watching. The sky cracked. Across the world, in the shadowed sanctum of the mirror spire, Lady Ovlin dropped her goblet. It shattered on impact. Ink and blood spilled across the floor as her eyes went wide. "No," she whispered. But it was too late. The bloodline had spoken. The mark had awakened. And the girl she'd spent 2 decades crafting, cursing, erasing, had named herself. Ovlin hissed, turning to the mirror wall. Her hands flared with raw light. "She thinks a name makes her real? I'll rip her back through every scar I've ever written on her bones." She raised both palms. The soul chain ignited. Back on the Sunshatter steps, Lisservel screamed. Not from pain. From pull. The sky above her twisted, mirror light slashing down through the clouds. A silver tether lashed around her shoulders, dragging her backward, not physically, but soul first, trying to reclaim her, to make her a vessel once again. Her knees dug into the stone. Sarethar shouted her name, but not the one he knew. Lisservel. She gritted her teeth. Fangs emerged. Her fingers split into claws. Her skin cracked, and not from weakness, but from wolf. Not the curse-forced transformation. Not the mirror's sculpted obedience. This was hers. She turned her head and howled, not from agony, but from will. And the tether shattered. The light recoiled. The mirror call collapsed into sparks. She stood, eyes gold-rimmed and wild. Sarethar stepped forward, chest rising like something had lifted off his ribs. "You remember who you are," he said softly. She turned, panting, eyes wet with something that wasn't weakness. "No," she said. "I finally decided." He smiled. And for the first time, he did not shield her. Did not reach to catch her. Did not say be careful. Instead, he nodded. "Then go," he said. "Tear down the cage. Rip out your leash." Her bones realigned. Her shoulders rolled back. And Lisservel Fenhalder, wolf-blooded, king-marked, curse-born, ran. Chapter 18. Let her bleed, but not die. The Hollow Hollows were never named in reverence. A rift carved into the bones of the land, where the imprint of history itself had been stripped, leaving only silence and stone. Nothing grew here. Not even moss. Not even rot. Only blood had learned to settle in its grooves, because the land had learned to drink it. And it drank from her now. Lyrine's body dangled over the edge of a carved summoning circle, her back stripped open by lashes that weren't made by whip or blade, but binding runes burned directly into her spine. Her arms were tied above her head, wrists bloodied and raw, held aloft by silver-threaded chains inscribed with the mirror tongue. The ink in them pulsed every time her heart tried to beat. Every time she dared to fight. Each pulse forced her blood downward, drop by drop, into the deep bowl beneath her, the ritual pan. An ancient relic of the tower's first design. And the only way, Ovlin had once said, to collect obedient blood. Not wild. Not free. Obedient. And she was being wrung like a cloth. A body. Not a person. A key, not a soul. The worst part? She hadn't screamed. Not even once. But she had cried. Not from the pain. From the visions. From the memory loop they had cast into her skull. Sarethar. Dying. Over and over. Sometimes in her arms. Sometimes beneath her teeth. Sometimes begging her to stop while she, wolf-shaped and lost, ripped out his throat because the blood mark demanded it. "Stop it," she choked. "Please." But there was no one to answer. Until there was. A voice came, soft and sweet. "I told you not to fight me, little wolf." She froze. The air around her thickened. She felt it, not in her ears, but in her bones, a vibration that wasn't noise but command. Lady Ovlin's presence slid into her mind like silk across raw flesh. Not harsh. Not cruel. Gentle. That made it worse. Lyarine, the voice purred. What are you doing out here, hanging like an unruly charm on the edge of your own purpose? Get out, Lyarine whispered. You're still resisting? Ovlin asked, amused. Darling, you're not even in control of your form. Lyarine's jaw clenched. Her legs kicked weakly beneath her, scraping the edge of the cliff where her blood continued to drip, still feeding the pan. Still giving. Always giving. You think this is punishment? Ovlin said softly. No. This is refinement. A vessel needs to be emptied before it can be filled properly. Lyarine bit her lip until she tasted metal. Don't you understand? The voice cooed. You're the last pure fusion. Witch blood. King blood. Mirror blood. Your skin is a spell book, your womb a seal. You are not meant to live. You are meant to contain. Tears burned behind Lyarine's eyes. And your wolf, Ovlin continued, sweetly, your precious beast, do you know what it is now? A curse-resisting structure. A tantrum. It won't last. It never does. A fresh jolt of pain exploded up Lyarine's spine as the blood-binding shackles surged. She screamed. Her head lolled, mouth open, breath ragged. Somewhere below, the pan of her blood glowed. Don't waste this, Ovlin whispered. Bleed if you must. But don't die. Not yet. Not when you're so close to being useful. The voice faded. The silence returned. But it wasn't true silence. Not anymore. Now there was a heartbeat. Not hers. His. It echoed faintly beneath her blood pulse, like a tether pulling through fog. Sarethar. Alive. Or maybe just remembered. She clenched her jaw. She let her body hang limp again, but her fingers twitched. Tiny. Intentional. Not broken. Not yet. Chapter 19. The Alpha Who Forgot How to Shift. The sky above Ashvin Blackstone Hold was brittle and gray, like a memory turned to ash. Once, the fortress had been Sarethar's. Once, its walls had echoed with bone song and wolf howl, the proud rhythm of a kingdom ruled by strength. But now the gates hung off rusted hinges, the halls collapsed, and the scent of pack had long since faded into rot. He stood in the center of the courtyard, shirtless, bleeding from his own hand. He had just punched the wall again. The stone didn't flinch. His knuckles split. Still no shift. Still no growl, no flicker beneath the skin. The call of the wolf, the thing that had lived in his marrow since the first time he howled at the moon, was silent. No. Absent. Gone. He dropped to his knees. The blood ran freely now, a dark ribbon down his wrist. Sarethar. The voice didn't come from behind him. It came from within. He turned his head sharply. No one. Just the whisper of memory, dancing too close. Her. Lyarine. He could feel the space where her pain used to press against his senses. It wasn't gone. Just faint. Distant. Like she was bleeding somewhere far beyond what his body could remember how to reach. And he couldn't find her. Because he wasn't a wolf anymore. He screamed. Not words, just raw breath. He clawed at his chest, as if he could tear open his ribs and drag out whatever had replaced the thing that once responded to her voice. His mark still sat there. But it was dull. The royal blood glyph he'd carved into his back no longer shimmered. He was still bound. But he couldn't shift. Couldn't run. Couldn't hunt. He wasn't Alpha anymore. Just man. Broken man. That's when Verek arrived. No sound of approach. No scent. Just presence, folding in like a shadow refusing to ask permission. You're quiet, he said, voice gentle. Sarethar didn't look up. Go away. Verek walked in a slow circle, bare feet silent on the stone. His eyes, mirror-laced and unblinking, drifted over the ruined courtyard like he'd seen it burned 1,000 times. You remember this place, he said. You trained here. Bled here. Killed here. Sarethar said nothing. Now you bleed alone, Verek mused. And for what? I'm not like you. Verek's smile was faint. You think this is about what we are? No. This is about what we've lost. He crouched beside him. You think you can save her without the beast? You think blood is enough? Do you know what saved me when they did this to me? When they ripped the howl out of my spine and replaced it with mirror rage. Suruther still refused to look at him. Varek leaned closer. Nothing. Nothing saved me. Nothing will save her either. Unless you become what I did. Unless you let go of who you were. I'll never be like you. Varek stood. His voice softened. You already are. He vanished into the mist like he'd never been there. But the words remained. Suruther stared at his blood-stained hands. He pressed his forehead to the stone, chest heaving. And then came the hallucination. Or the memory. Or something in between. Lyarine. Kneeling. Her white dress soaked through with blood. Her lips trembling, eyes hollow. Please, she whispered. Please come back. He reached for her, but his hands passed through. Just another dream. Just another failure. Don't go, she whispered. He closed his eyes. And answered into the dark. I'm coming. He didn't know if it was madness or a vow. But it was all he had left. He knelt in the ruins, no longer a wolf, but something else entirely. And he waited for the part of him that remembered how to howl. Chapter 20. What she begged me not to see. The Mirror Spire public right court was carved from vanity. Every surface reflected. Not just polished marble or obsidian floors, mirrors. Dozens. Hundreds. Curved into the domed ceiling. Embedded along the columns. Set into the floor so that even when your knees met the stone, you were forced to see the humiliation etched into your spine. They caught every twitch, every cry, every rivulet of blood and shame, and threw it back tenfold. For the audience. For the council. For her. Lyarine stood in the center of it all, bound in white. Not robes this time. A dress, long and ceremonial, slashed open at the back to expose her shoulder blades. Across her chest, the blood-masking sigils had been faintly smeared, useless, symbolic. Her wrists were shackled in silver cuffs, heavy and etched with suppression runes that pulsed whenever she flinched. And around her neck, a collar, mirror-laced, ringed, lined with thin glass hooks that pressed into her skin if she moved too suddenly. They'd shaped her, quite literally, into a creature meant for display. And she said nothing. Not when they dragged her in. Not when they pulled her to her knees. Not even when they forced the shift. Her bones didn't break, they yielded. Softly. Like she'd done it too many times. The ears came first, fur-lined and delicate, twitching with embarrassment as the spell pried them into visibility. Her eyes bled gold again. The wolf was always just under the skin now. She was made to kneel with her hands behind her back, head bowed. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't need to. They were already whispering. Is that her? She was the one who seduced the alpha? They say she's part royal. That's why the blood took her. She looks too thin to be dangerous. Then why is she still alive? Why indeed? At the top of the hall, standing just beneath the grand mirror arch, Mistress Ralathwin stepped forward. Her robes shimmered with fresh embroidery, mirror vine and blood thorns stitched into the hem. Her gaze swept the crowd before settling on Lyarine. Bring forth the record of offense. A mirror priestess stepped forward with a scroll, unfolded it with practiced pomp. Ralathwin didn't read it aloud. She turned to Lyarine instead. Lisservel Fenhalder, she said, voice smooth. Daughter of no legal name. Wolf of unregistered bond. Vessel of failed sealing. Do you acknowledge your violation of royal imprint protocol? Lyarine didn't move. A second of silence. Ralathwin's voice turned sharper. Did you knowingly induce blood resonance with a bearer of Kingline? Silence again. You are accused of provoking unauthorized imprint, Ralathwin continued, tone rising. Of seducing the heir to forge a mark not your own. Of destabilizing the mirror blood sanctum through bonded rejection. Still no answer. She only blinked slowly, eyes dull. Ralathwin's smile thinned. So you remain silent? Lyarine exhaled. Softly. Barely audible. Yes. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Yes, not an admission of guilt, but a statement of intent. Yes, she would be silent. Yes, she would not name him. Not here. Not ever. Ralathwin's smile faded entirely. Very well. She raised her hand. The ritual whip was brought forward. It wasn't leather. It was forged of silver root, thin strands of mirrored glass braided with obedience runes, sharp enough to slice flesh, enchanted enough to remember pain. The first strike landed across Lyrine's back with a sound like fire cracking. She flinched. The crowd went silent. Another blow. Then another. Blood bloomed across the open fabric. Her body shook with each impact, but she never screamed. Never cried out. Her head remained bowed, lips closed. They didn't beat her to make her confess. They beat her to make her shatter. But she did not. With every lash, the blood on her back began to drip in lines, at first random, then not. They twisted, curled, formed shapes, symbols, and finally, a sigil. A glowing mark in the shape of a wolf, jaws open, fangs bared, etched in red across her spine. Ralathwin froze. That was not part of the punishment design. The mark pulsed once. Twice. Lyrine swayed on her knees, breath ragged. Her eyes rolled upward, not in surrender, but in the strange clarity that comes before a storm breaks. And, in the back of her mind, a voice. Not her own. Bleed. But do not die. Ovlin. Watching. Always watching. But now she didn't fear it. Lyrine lifted her gaze. Eyes gold. And somewhere, Surethur stirred in his sleep, across the miles, and whispered, I see you. Chapter 21. My pain is where you touched me last. The spirit well did not exist in space. It lived in the breath between memory and surrender, at the bottom of a breath not fully taken, in the heartbeat that stutters between dreaming and waking. It was where souls bled when the body could no longer carry what it had endured. And Lyrine was bleeding. She stood at the edge of the well, barefooted, half-clothed in what remained of the ceremonial white, torn, stained, clinging to her like an apology never spoken. Her skin shimmered in dreamlight, streaked with the marks of everything the mirror court had done to her. Welts across her back. Silver-pink lash scars over her thighs. Wolf-bite scabs still tender on her shoulder. She didn't look away from them anymore. Not here. Because here, pain meant she was still someone. The water in the well was still. It mirrored her body back to her, not perfectly, not cruelly. Honestly. And then it rippled. A figure emerged behind her. Familiar. Surethur. Not in his blood-slicked armor or battle-torn cloak. Just him, the way he was before the mark, before the curse, before everything turned sharp and cruel. He was facing away. Bare from the waist up, his back marked with the ghost of a glyph she remembered carving into him. She didn't speak at first. Didn't breathe. The ache in her chest returned. She took one step toward him. He didn't turn. I can't come closer, he said. His voice wasn't harsh. It was broken. She stopped. Her arms trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. Why not? She whispered. Because if I do, he exhaled, and the sound cracked, I won't leave again. The well shimmered. And around them, the dream turned darker. The stone under her feet turned warm, too warm. She looked down. Blood. Dripping from her own body. Fresh. The lash scars reopened across her back. Her skin split where the collar had cut her. Her thighs ached where the hooks had dragged her through the mirror dirt. She gasped. Her knees gave out. But she didn't scream. Not yet. She crawled forward, toward his back. Surethur. He didn't move. She reached for him. Her fingers touched the skin over his spine. The same place she'd seen her mark rest on him. He flinched like her hand burned him. And the world recoiled. The water exploded upward in a silent splash, but no droplets fell. A mirror rose instead, round and huge, slamming up between them. She saw her own reflection. Blood-soaked. mouth open. A girl and a wolf sharing one shape. And then she screamed. Not from pain. From memory. From knowing this wasn't him, not anymore, not truly. She sank to her knees again, tears smearing down her cheeks. She pressed her hand to the glass. He did not reach back. She rested her forehead against the mirror. I remember where you touched me last, she whispered. That's where it hurts now. The collar on her neck shimmered again. The mirror crackled. Behind the dream, in a place even deeper than sleep, Lady Evelyn listened. Not with ears, but with purpose. She stood beside a silver basin, her hands resting on its edge, her eyes half-lidded as the dream spilled across the water's surface. The priestess beside her shifted nervously. Should we wake her? Evelyn shook her head. She's further in now than she's ever been. Her soul's readying itself for permanent resonance. She dipped a finger into the water, stirring it. She's almost fully contained. The basin flared. And in the dream, Lyarine whispered through her tears. Just let me see him, one more time. Chapter 22. She knelt for the enemy, so I wouldn't have to. The blood stare lived up to its name. No matter how many times it had been washed, the deep red soaked into its stonework never faded. The iron scent clung to the air like prophecy, dried pain, soaked pride, and the long silent screams of those who had ascended these steps for the last time. Lyarine was dragged up them like a relic. The mirror court had done their work well. She was dressed not in rags, but in ceremonial white again, this time pure, untouched, humiliatingly pristine, like a blank page someone meant to bleed words onto. Her wrists were bound in front of her with mirrored cuffs, more symbolic than functional now. Her steps were slow not from resistance, but because her body simply couldn't move faster. The wounds from the right court still laced her back, raw beneath the silk. The guards flanking her didn't speak. There was no need to announce what she was. Everyone at Wolvenhall already knew. A traitor. A vessel. A royal-blooded curse. But she kept walking. Because he was here. At the top of the stairs sat a throne not made of gold, but of wolves, carved from obsidian and onyx, shaped like howls frozen in agony. The man seated upon it was as still as the grave, his robes black and edged with old blood-binding sigils. Kareth. The Regent King. He did not rise as she approached. He did not speak. But the moment her bare feet touched the last stair, something happened. Her blood shivered. Every drop of it. As if the part of her still tied to the mother who'd once screamed her name from a burning tower recognized this man's presence in her bones. This was him. The one who had ordered her mother's death. She nearly collapsed. Not from fear, but from rage. Say it, a voice inside her growled. Scream it. Kill him. End this. But she didn't. Because she wasn't alone. Not truly. Somewhere behind the columns, beyond the shrouds of obsidian guards and burning sconces, Serether was here. He had come for her. She had smelled his bloodprint in the stairway dust, faint, carefully concealed. He was beneath the floorboards of this moment. And if she made one wrong move, he would die before he ever reached her. So she dropped to her knees. The echo cracked through the chamber. She bowed. Not from reverence, but from strategy. She pressed her palms to the floor before her, fingertips grazing the cold obsidian tile, and forced her head to lower until her brow kissed the stone. Gasps rippled behind her. Even the regent leaned forward. She felt the mirror scrying spells flare up, desperate to record every angle of this, the royal-born curse, kneeling in total submission. Her shoulders trembled. But her voice? Clear, soft, and full of deliberate agony. I offer myself, she said, to Wolvenhall, to the court, to the crown, so long as he remains untouched. A pause. Her throat locked. I am yours. Not his name. Never his name. Don't risk it. She stayed bowed. Waited. She felt it, the weight of Kareth's gaze, heavy as chains, cold as the blade that had once slit her mother's throat. You beg for your lover? Kareth asked, voice low and amused. Or for the memory of what he might have been? Lyarine didn't answer. Because she was shaking now, not with fear. With shame. Because even this was worth it if it kept Sarethar alive. Somewhere in the shadows beyond the throne, behind carved wolf statues and smoke-draped curtains, Sarethar watched. His breath caught when her knees hit the floor. When she pressed her hands out in full, submissive posture. When she whispered a sacrifice that bled in every syllable. And he clenched his fists until blood spilled into his palms. I'll make them pay for every second you spend on your knees, he thought. And I will lift you back up with my own hands. But not yet. Not now. Lyarine knelt for him. So he could be the one to stand. Chapter 23, A Kingdom Carved into Her Skin. The Crowell chamber smelled of incense and old blood. It wasn't just a throne room. It was a sanctum of command, an altar wrapped in deception, where the gods of lineage were written not in law, but in flesh. And today, they would write her. Lyarine stood at the center, or rather, was placed there. Stripped of the ceremonial white and wrapped in gauze, she was little more than breath and defiance now. Her body bore marks, some healing, most still weeping, and yet none of them were what the Mirror Court had planned next. They didn't want her blood this time. They wanted her bones. The chamber stretched circular and endless, its high dome inscribed with the ancient bloodlines of Fenhalder kings, each name etched in mirrored stone. In the center, a stone platform rose like a sacrificial cradle, arched back, wrists and ankles bound by chains woven from sigil-threaded glass. A slab, not a bed. A stage, not a place of rest. And upon it, they fastened her. Not hurriedly. Ritualistically. Lady Ovlin oversaw the process, flanked by the Mirror Council and Kareth himself, seated, watching, always silent. No mask this time. He wanted her to see him. Wanted her to know it was he who had killed her mother, broken her name, and now would remake her into something that would never scream again. But still, she had not spoken his name. And she would not now. The first blade was ceremonial. Silver. It did not cut, it scorched. The priestess wielding it held no hatred. Only precision. She knelt beside Lyarine's left thigh, pressed the blade down, and etched. The pain ignited instantly. A white-hot spiral that tunneled into her muscles and seared its mark against bone. Lyarine arched, but could not move far. The restraints caught. She bit down hard, copper blooming on her tongue. Above her, Ovlin spoke. Begin the mother marking sequence. A dozen runes lit up around the chamber. Every council member extended a hand to the sigil light. The air thickened. Her chains pulled tighter. The second blade was dipped in her own blood. They used it to draw onto her stomach, looping curves into cruel geometry. This time, the magic pulled each symbol inside her, locking into place with a sickening click that made her spine jolt. Her scream was silent. Not because she didn't feel it, but because she refused to give them her voice. Ovlin stepped forward now, her robes trailing mirror fringe that sang as she moved. She bent low beside Lyarine's ear. You were born of rebellion, she whispered, but you will become the obedience of an entire kingdom. Lyarine's fingers twitched, but her lips stayed closed. The third sequence began. This time, they opened the vein along her forearm, not to drain her, but to link her. The blood was caught in a glass channel and carried down through slits in the platform, funneling into the royal imprint sigil array, carved into the stone beneath her. With each drop, another name in the bloodline ceiling above flickered to life, responding not to oath or will, but to ownership. They weren't just using her blood to sustain the kingdom. They were making her the core. Not a queen. A conduit. She gasped again, back arching, teeth chattering. But she still didn't scream. Karetha's eyes never left her. Ovlin straightened and raised both hands. Begin the binding. The final blade was drawn. Thin. Serrated. Each line they carved now was meant to remain visible, forming the King's Link totem, a diagram of control, mapping every tribe, every house, every alpha who would, from this day forward, pull power not from the old rituals, but from her. Lyrine's chest was bare. They etched just below her collarbone, down across her ribcage, curling beneath her breasts, drawing deep into her sides and lower belly. The ink used was mirrorroot extract, designed to glow under command. With each stroke, she felt herself slip further, not away, but inward, into a place where rage lived like a sleeping animal. They were writing obedience into her skin, and she was memorizing every name. Her body writhed in restrained agony, salt tears slipping down her cheeks, lost in her own blood. But she never called for him. Not once. Not Sarethar. Not anyone. And when the final rune was pressed into her skin, sealing the last connection with a snap of Ovlin's fingers, the chamber filled with light. The council began to cheer. Power pulsed. The sigil on the floor flared crimson. And high above, for a brief moment, the dome cracked. Chapter 24. His teeth on my throat, my blood in his mouth. The mirrorroot crypt lay beneath the palace like a secret the earth never wanted unearthed. Sarethar had followed blood to get here, not fresh, not even physical. It was memory blood, pulsing through the halls in the scent of burnt marrow and stamped sigils, in the way the walls throbbed like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. He moved in silence, slower now, breath jagged in his chest. Every step burned. Because his wolf was gone. Because every muscle in his body screamed with the effort of keeping going without it. But she was here. And they were going to kill her, not by blade or fire, but by ownership. He reached the final arch of the crypt. Beyond it, the chamber pulsed in a low, echoing rhythm. Her heartbeat stretched thin, threaded into the core of the kingdom like a candle burning from both ends. And there she was. Lyrine, no, Lisservel, strapped to the center of the imprint dais, naked save for the glowing lines etched into her skin. Sigils shone across her chest, curling down her thighs, burned into the ridges of her ribs and the hollows of her collarbones. She looked like a map of the Empire's greed, like a goddess bled into submission. But she was alive. Barely. He rushed to her, hands shaking. Lyrine, he whispered, already clawing at the restraints. I'm here. I'm getting you out. Her eyelids fluttered. Her mouth trembled. No, she croaked. He froze. Her eyes opened. Gold. Wild. Fevered. Don't pull me out. What? She coughed, blood bubbling at her lips. If you break the seal now, the imprint system will collapse. I'm tied in. They did it. They made me the core. He stared at her. No. No. She couldn't be. She nodded faintly. If you sever me, I die. He dropped to his knees beside her. His hands hovered, trembling. And she smiled. Soft. Ruined. Unless. Her eyes met his. Full of fire. Unless you bite me. He stopped breathing. What? You're still Alpha, she whispered. Somewhere in there. I can feel it. I'm not. You are, she hissed. You were mine before they made me theirs. He flinched. I'll shatter the system if I try to pull you free. Then don't pull. Anchor. Bind. He shook his head. I can't do this to you. I can't. She reached up, weak fingers dragging along his arm. Her voice cracked. I'm not afraid of pain anymore, she whispered. I'm afraid you won't bite. His vision blurred. I'll hurt you. Then I'll know I'm still mine. Not theirs. And then. She bared her throat, turned her face, exposing the curve of her collarbone, the place where no sigils reached, where no one had claimed. Yet, he leaned forward, slow as grief. His lips brushed the skin. She gasped. He could feel the warmth of her blood pulsing just beneath the surface, fragile, begging. I'm sorry, he whispered. And then. He bit. Not soft. Not gentle. This was the mark, the Alpha's vow, the last vestige of a creature no longer whole, the shred of a wolf that refused to die until she was safe. She arched beneath him. Her scream tore through the crypt, ripped the breath from his lungs, cracked the silence of the spell itself. The entire chamber flickered, the sigils stuttering, the light surging. Her blood spilled into his mouth, and he tasted her salt, iron, fire, and something more. Power snapped into place between them. A new circuit. One they didn't own. Her body bucked once, then stilled. Her eyes rolled back. She went limp, unconscious. He pulled back, breath torn from his chest, mouth covered in red. She was breathing, but only barely. Outside the crypt, the guards had heard her scream. Footsteps pounded down the corridors. Serether looked down at her, at the girl who had let him break her just to stay herself. He cradled her in his arms, something unhinging in his gaze. And as the first torches appeared in the distance, the madness slipped into his voice, soft and savage. "You wanted blood," he said. "You'll get mine." Chapter 25. Wolves don't beg, but she did. The Moo Forge hall shimmered with echoes. No light touched it directly, it reflected, refracted, curved off silver sand runes etched across every surface. Ancient wolf kings had come here to forge their oaths, to bind pacts, to burn names into steel and blood. Now it stood empty, except for the two of them. Lyarine woke to the scent of burnt sigils and smoke-worn leather. She sat up too fast, her spine aching, skin still raw from the mark. Pain lanced across her chest. Her body remembered everything, the bite, the scream, the faint flutter of his voice saying her name as she fell. But the space beside her was cold. She turned. He was at the far end of the hall. Serether. Fully clothed now, cloak draped around his shoulders, his back turned. He stood before the ancient moon sigil embedded in the floor, its rings beginning to glow. The ceremonial blade was already drawn. The coordinates marked. The core of the mirror contract, the imprint engine itself, waited only for his body to become the trigger. He didn't see her rise, didn't hear her stumble on bare feet toward him. But when her voice broke the silence, it shattered something more than magic. "Don't," she said. He flinched, didn't turn. "You're not strong enough to stop me." She walked closer. "You're not weak enough to leave me." Still, he didn't turn. The only way to collapse the imprint nexus is to destroy the anchor point. I'm the only one who's still threaded to it. It has to be me. "No," she said again, firmer. He didn't respond. She reached him and fell to her knees. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't poised. Her body collapsed, ribs trembling under the strain, fingers latching around his waist like they were the last rope before the cliff's edge. She pressed her forehead to the hollow of his spine. "I was made to kneel," she whispered. "They all tried to make me. For their power. For their pride." He looked down. Her voice broke. "But not like this." She looked up at him, her eyes gold and wild and wet. "I kneel now for you. Not to stop you. Not to bargain. Just," her voice cracked again, "just don't leave." Silence. He turned. His face was pale, drawn. The remnants of the wolf still lingered in his eyes, in the twitch of his jaw, but his body was almost human now. Fragile. He reached down, took her chin between his fingers, and lifted her face. She didn't blink, didn't breathe. Then he leaned down and pressed his lips to her forehead. A kiss. Not possession. Not promise. But goodbye. When he pulled back, her breath hitched. Her voice turned into a sob. "Serether. I told you," he whispered. "You have a life to live. I don't want it without you." "You don't have to want it," he said. "You just have to survive it." She rose to her feet shakily, clutching his arm. "I can be the vessel. I can be the wolf. I can be broken, bound, scarred, but I can't be without you." He looked at her. His gaze didn't soften. It burned. And still, he stepped back. "You already were without me," he said. "And you didn't break." He turned, walked toward the sigil. Each footfall sent pulses into the floor, activating the blood lattice. "No," she whispered. Her body didn't move. Couldn't. His shadow reached the center. Then, he stopped. "I marked you to save your life," he said, without turning. "But I never asked you to carry my death." He placed his palm over the core rune. The hall exploded in light. She screamed his name. But the light took him first. And when it faded, he was gone. Chapter 26. She broke the lock with her own teeth. No one was coming for her this time. There was no prophecy humming in the walls. No savior's footsteps down the corridor. No scent of leather and ash curling beneath the door to whisper he's here. Only chains. And the creaking of the silver-bound stair groaning beneath her weight. Lyrene dangled between two ancient columns, her arms stretched above her head, wrists bound in silver rings etched with active suppression runes. The mirrored chains anchored her between two levels of the tower like a broken ornament, hung there not to contain, but to display. Her toes scraped the stone every time she swayed. And below her, the mirror priests watched with soft murmurs, murmuring measurements like she was just a vessel in calibration. She's settled. No further surges in imprint feedback. The White Wolf threshold appears dormant. Begin ritual prep. Ovelyn will link in within the hour. She tuned them out. Her lips were cracked. Her breath shallow. But her eyes, gold-ringed and glowing faintly in the tower dim, remained open. Watching. Not for him. Not anymore. That ache had buried itself deep, somewhere unreachable. Now, there was only one thing left. Her. They'd taken everything else. So she gave herself back. One ragged inhale. Two. Her arms throbbed in their restraints, the skin around her wrists raw where the sigil metal had seared her. But something pulsed beneath the pain, a beat, slow and certain, older than the mirror tower, older than the kingdom itself. The wolf. Still here. Still hers. She bared her teeth. They didn't glow with magic. They didn't need to, because they remembered. She twisted her arms upward, not to pull loose, but to press her wrist bone to her own mouth. The moment her fangs sank in, the sigils flared as if they knew. Pain burst through her like wildfire. She bit harder. The bone cracked, and the first link snapped. Her breath tore from her throat in a growl that built into a snarl, half human, half beast, all fury. One hand free now. Fingers blood-slicked. She reached up, seized the other shackle, and ripped. The mirrored ring split open with a metallic scream. She dropped. Her knees hit stone. The mirror priests turned. Too slow. Too human. Too late. Her hands slapped against the floor, body trembling, skin flickering between girl and beast. "Contain her," someone shouted. "Initiate sigil cage." Too slow. She screamed. But it wasn't language. It was howl. It was war. Her spine arched back, ribs cracking as they reformed, for splitting through her skin like vengeance made visible. The markings carved into her chest and thighs burned gold, then white, then something deeper, bone-light, raw and sacred. She rose. No longer Lyrene. Not entirely. A creature of white markings and silver claws, eyes like fractured mirrors, and a voice made of old pain sharpened into power. The white bone wolf. And she tore into them. One swipe shredded the closest priest into ribbons of red. Another scream shattered the half-formed sigil gates flickering around the stairwell. The tower pulsed. Contracts destabilizing, she heard one mage scream as he fell. Core resonance breach. Seal her. Seal. She lunged. She didn't wait to see them fall. Didn't need to. The mirror root etched into the walls began to glow, unstable, overwhelmed, afraid. The entire tower knew. She was no longer a vessel. She was plague. She bounded upward, claws carving into stair and stone, shattering chains as she passed. Cells burst open behind her, failed experiments and test blood screaming as freedom washed in like a storm of teeth. She howled again, this time not for rage. but for release. For the girl who had begged on her knees and gotten silence. For the girl who had whispered "don't leave" and watched a kiss become a goodbye. For every scream she'd swallowed, every name she'd been stripped of, every touch that branded her someone else's property. She was no one's. Not anymore. The tower shook, and the white-bone wolf kept running. Chapter 27. The King Bleeds or the World Burns. The doors to the high-bind throne hall didn't break. They shattered. Twin slabs of reinforced obsidian, engraved with generations of royal binding oaths, exploded inward with a roar that cracked the sigil lines in the walls. Dust spiraled. The chamber gasped. And she walked in. Barefoot. Blood spattered. Naked from the waist up, but for the slashed ceremonial sash barely clinging to her ribs. Her back still steamed from the sigil-seared shackles she'd broken. Across her skin, a map of pain turned power, mirror vein tattoos glowing faintly, white wolf fur crawling at her shoulders, and between her ears, the unmistakable rise of wool-bone ears tipped in silver. Lyarine. Le Cervelle. No longer a vessel. No longer prey. But something more. At the center of the hall, Surethur knelt in chains. His wrists bled freely, the red-black sheen of Markbreaker blood curse, the Markbreaker curse, creeping up his forearms like rotting vines. His shirt had been stripped, chest bare, ribcage trembling. The edges of his glyph had already begun to unravel, like the wolf had been exorcised from him one thread at a time. Kareth stood above him, one hand resting on the edge of the throne forged from royal sigils and vanquished alpha bones. "You see," the regent said softly. His tone was amused. Cold. Triumphant. "She's here. Just like I told you. The girl you bled for. The beast you marked. She's not here to save you, boy. She's here to break you. She's the prophecy that unravels your kind. Your undoing." Surethur coughed. Blood slipped down his chin. And still, he whispered, "Don't listen to him." But she already stood in front of them. Her hands shook at her sides. Not with fear. With restraint. Her eyes met Kareth's, and he, for the first time, hesitated. Because her pupils weren't human anymore. They were mirrored. Her voice, when it came, was soft. Deadly. "Get away from him." Kareth chuckled. "Or what, little wolf? You'll scratch me?" "No." She took another step forward. Her foot left a bloody print on the marble. "I'll burn you." Kareth gestured lazily to the guards lining the pillars, but none moved. Not a single one. Because they'd all heard of the girl who'd torn through the silver-bind tower with her teeth. She dropped to her knees beside Surethur. Not like she had for the regent. Not like a servant. Like a storm preparing to rest only when it had chosen its target. Her hands cradled his jaw. His lips parted, eyes glassy. "You came back," he whispered. She leaned in. Licked the blood from the corner of his mouth. A slow, deliberate drag of tongue over broken flesh. He gasped. The entire chamber went still. The meaning wasn't lost on anyone. Not a kiss. Not submission. But claim. She pulled back and pressed her brow to his, the gesture tender, intimate. And then she whispered, "We don't need a mark. You were mine the moment I bled for you." She stood. Her spine straightened. Her ribs rose. And in one fluid motion, she tore the bloodcloth binding from her own back, the red ceremonial wrap, woven with her mother's sigils, soaked in sacrifice and suffering, and draped it over Surethur's shoulders. He blinked up at her, throat tight. She said nothing. She turned to Kareth. And her voice echoed. "He tries to kill you, I will fall with you. But if he kills you..." Her head tilted. "I will burn everything he owns to ash. And I'll start with his name." The throne hall rumbled. The stone beneath her cracked. Kareth's eyes narrowed. So this was no longer a trial. No longer a warning. This was war. He lifted his hand. The air split behind him. And from the shadows, the royal imprint army began to march in. Steel glinting. Runes glowing. 30 generations of bound oaths and forced contracts descending in unison. The final battle was no longer rumor. It had begun. Chapter 28: The Howl That Unmade the World. The moon bled. Not in the sky, but over the land. Over Velmer. Its pale light shimmered with a tint of red, refracted through the spiral of broken sigils that hung in the air like fractured runes. They spun slowly above the bloodline throne, casting shadows on marble that hadn't cooled in centuries. The glyphs on the floor pulsed out of sync. Threads of imprint magic, once delicate, once divine, now vibrated like fraying nerves. The world was unraveling. And she was the reason. Lyarine stood at the edge of the moonroot platform, her feet bare, her body half wolf, half witch, all curse. White bone markings cracked like lightning across her ribs, pulsing with mirror fire. Her eyes were mirrors now too, but they reflected only the pieces of a system that had devoured her and everyone like her. Behind her, the mirror tower had already begun to collapse. The enslaved wolves, the bound alphas and beta priest hounds that had been strung together by generations of centralized contract magic, were dropping to their knees one by one. They gagged, bled. Their throat glyphs burned crimson and burst, releasing howls that had never been theirs. Unbinding. Her howl had started it. Not a scream. Not a plea. A call. A declaration. One voice against an empire of stolen ones. And in front of her, at the peak of the Highbind steps, draped in the pulsing red of the king's blood oath robes, Kareth, the regent. His hand gripped the royal Valcor, a device forged from bone and gold, humming with the last stable imprint system in the realm. And at his feet, slumped forward in chains, Sarethar. His head hung low. His breath came shallow. And on his chest, black glyphs spread like rot. The Markbreaker blood curse was almost complete. Kareth smiled. "You wanted to destroy my world," he said, his voice smooth with triumph. "But look, he is what's crumbling." He crouched beside the dying alpha, fingers gently brushing his temple. "Don't worry," he purred. "She will take your place. She will kneel and I will rebind every pack through her blood. The girl who ended the old bloodline will become the root of the next." He looked up at her. "Unless..." He raised the core. "Unless you kneel." Lyarine didn't move. But something in her eyes shifted. He twisted the core. Sarethar gasped. His whole body jerked as if pulled on invisible strings. The sigils on his arms flared. His voice, hoarse, threadbare, managed only one name. Lyarine. She broke. Her knees hit the stone. But not in surrender. In grief. Her hands slammed to the floor, fists trembling. Blood from her knuckles smeared across the sigil ring. Her eyes stung. "Stop," she whispered. Kareth tilted his head. "Beg louder." "No," her voice cracked. "I'm not begging." And then she bit into her own hand. Hard. Bone snapped. Skin split. The crowd, what remained of it, gasped as blood splattered the ancient glyphs, soaking into the core lines of the imprint floor. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. She reached into the wound. Found the embedded blood seed, the living imprint core, the one that tethered her soul to Sarethar's, and ripped it out. Sarethar screamed. Not in pain. In sudden release. His chain snapped. His glyphs burned off. Kareth roared, "No." But Lyarine wasn't finished. She lifted the seed of their shared imprint to her lips. It pulsed alive, trembling. She whispered to it. "You're free now. You don't need to belong to me." And she swallowed it. The moment it touched her throat, her back arched. Light burst from her skin, not fire, not lightning, something older. Contractless magic. Wild. Untamed. Hers. Her body cracked with it. Ridges split down her spine. Her markings burned white hot. Her bones stretched, becoming not wolf, not woman, but remnant. Her final howl tore through the stone like a blade. And the entire imprint system screamed with her. Mirror glyphs shattered. Binding chains crumbled to dust. The sigils around the throne flickered and collapsed. The royal vow core exploded in Caratha's hand. He staggered back. "No," he whispered. "You're nothing without the system. You're just a failed altar." She walked forward, bleeding, breathless, brighter than any light in the room. "You built a kingdom on our bones," she said. "Now feel what it means to drown in them." Carath tried to run. She raised a single, blood-slicked hand, and the throne split down the middle. Stone folded like wet cloth. Carath screamed. And then he disintegrated. Not burned, not broken, but torn apart on a spiritual level, every imprint he'd ever claimed rejecting him at once. His bones powdered before they hit the floor. Lady Ovelyn didn't scream. She watched her mirror, her last escape, crack, and then consume her. Varek, in the corner, smiled softly. "I knew it," he whispered. "And let the wind take him." Sarethar crawled through the wreckage. "Lyarine," he called. "Lyarine." But the girl was gone. There was no body now. Only light. And in that light, a single drop of blood fell. It landed on his chest and burned into his skin. Not a binding. Not a mark. Just a memory. Her voice echoed, carried not by sound, but by the remnants of the world she'd shattered. "Live well. Don't let anyone else carry your name." And then she was gone. Not dead. Not consumed. Freed. From all contracts. All chains. All marks. Years later, they would say there was a wolf that wandered the edges of Velmer. A pale one unmarked. Without alpha. Without name. But sometimes, when the moon was full, she would cry. Not howl. Not growl. Just cry. For the one she had once loved enough to unmake the world. Chapter 29, Epilogue. The Wolf Who Chose Her Still. The snows of Ashfin Ridge had changed. Once, they were clean, pristine sheets of silence stretched across bone-white pines and moss-covered stones. Now, they were streaked with memory. Even the cold carried echoes. Sarethar Fenhalder had lived in that echo for 3 winters. Not among wolves. Not among men. But alone, in the hollowed-out trunk of an ancient bone pine, where the frost never fully melted and the wind carried whispers that did not belong to the living. No throne remained for him to kneel to. No oaths called to be made. Velmer had cracked, splintered, burned, and what rose from its ashes was a world without chains. A world without imprints. They called him the last alpha. But he had not shifted in 3 years. His claws had dulled into calluses. The wolf inside him silent. Bone voice gone. No fur, no howl, no command. He no longer wanted to lead. He had already followed someone into death and hadn't found the way back. But still, something tethered him here. A girl. Small, wide-eyed. More bones than flesh when he found her curled up by the remains of a ruined imprint shrine. She bore no markings. No inherited bonds. Just bruises and a spark behind her ash-colored eyes. She was maybe 7 when he took her in. No name. So he gave her one. Vela. And she never asked why he didn't speak much. Never pressed when his hands trembled before he reached for her shoulder. Never complained when he left at night and returned with dear blood crusting his knuckles. But one day, beneath the weight of a silent snowfall, she turned to him and asked, "Are you an alpha?" The question didn't wound. It hollowed. He stared at her for a long time, then looked away. That night, the wind howled through the pine slats of the hollow, fierce and keening. He sat at the edge of the old blood spring, the one beneath the ridge, where the water never froze. Where the air always smelled faintly of burnt silver and wild sage. It was where she'd bled. Where she'd broken the system. Where she'd saved him. And in the stillness, he heard it. Not aloud, but inward. "I didn't leave a mark on you," her voice whispered in his mind. "Because you deserved freedom, Sarethar. But if you still want to find the wolf, look where it hurt most." His hand moved slowly, pressing against the faint scar just above his heart. Her mark had never been visible, but it had been carved deeper than ink and blood. He stood and walked straight into the spring. The cold hit first, then the burn. He dropped to his knees, water pouring over his shoulders, the scent of her, mirror-root, bowfire, her, rising like smoke from the depths. "I don't have anything left to give you," he whispered. His fingers curled into fists. "Accept my name." Then he plunged beneath the surface, and the wolf came back like a scream. It wasn't slow. It wasn't gentle. It was a detonation of everything she had ever touched inside him. His fingers split, bone elongating. His spine arched violently. His chest cracked with a sound like thunder. Fur, white and streaked with silver bone markings, tore across his skin. His teeth burst through his jaw. And when he rose from the water, gasping, panting, howling, he was not the wolf he used to be. He was hers. Not possessed. Not claimed. But chosen. His howl echoed through Ashvin Ridge, bouncing from cliff to cliff until it became a song the whole land remembered. And behind him, rising one by one from the snows, from the caves, from the ashes of the old world, came others. Wolves. Unmarked. Free. One by one, they bowed their heads as he passed. Not to serve, but to mourn. And to follow. He led them to the highest peak. The place where the old contracts had been carved in blood and bone, and where now only silence remained. He stood beneath the full moon, breath silver in the dark. And he howled. Not in grief. Not in dominance. But in memory. Of the girl who had knelt not to beg, but to protect. Of the wolf who had loved him without keeping him. Of the curse that had ended the world, only to give it back whole. Behind him, the wolves howled too. And in the wind. For a breath, for a heartbeat. He heard her voice. Live well. Don't let anyone else carry your name. He closed his eyes. And ran. Ran like the storm she'd become. Like the howl that had shattered a kingdom. Like the final choice that could never be taken. Because some marks fade. Some chains snap. But choice. Choice carves deeper than blood. She chose him. And he chose to become her.